Well, I think we have to tell him the truth.
If we tell the truth, the timeline...
Timeline! This is no time to argue about time. We don't have the time.
Let's do the time warp again. I think we started another time travel episode with that line, but we're doing it again because time travel, yay. And as Chief O'Brien would say, I hate temporal mechanics. I do too. Hate them. They're the worst. But time travel is fun, and here we are, another fresh edition of A Strange New Pod. I am your captain and host, Julian Brown, alongside my trusty bridge crew, the man who keeps waiting for the Enterprise revival, Rear Admiral Eric,
It'll
the
happen.
Borg Queen of Puns, it will, maybe. The Borg Queen of Puns, Ensign Brittany, Eric Bana's understudy, Lieutenant Hawk, and the real Guardian of Forever, purveyor of San Fran Wales, and the sculptor of Zephyr Cochrane's statue, Ensign Erin. Glory to you and your houses. Welcome back after a little week off.
Yeah, it happened.
Julian.
I saw it happen. Don't tell me it didn't happen.
Julian, yesterday's Enterprise, more like yesterday's French fries.
Okay, so for people that don't know, Brittany is eating 24-hour French fries, but French fries from fast food places are just always stuck in stasis, right? So it's perfectly fine, right?
Yeah. She's young and her immune system is still strong.
Do you guys have the
I eat
onion
everything
rings?
off the ground, which is why I never get sick.
Do you guys have the onion rings at Burger King?
Oh, yeah,
We do.
We definitely have them at Arby's, right? They're at Arby's.
We have them at Burger King because I get them all the time.
Well, why do you have French fries then?
You're still
Or did you
killing
get
me
both?
I bought French fries.
eating these. Oh God.
I love my
You
French
guys,
fries though.
In college once, I had a pizza from Domino's, a box with pizza in it. And that bitch sat on the counter for like a week and I ate a slice every morning.
That's because that's what pizza's for in
That's
university
still
or
what I do.
college.
And I'm still alive.
Again, another mystery of temporal mechanics.
I wonder how pizza is in the future. If pizza still is
It's even
relevant
better.
and good, because we saw in Lower Decks that tacos are still very much relevant. So,
Yes.
That's
Just
because
saying.
people still taco about it.
oh boy, here we go.
The pizza, that's a slice of life that's never gonna leave.
It's true.
Oh God. To our Twitch collective, welcome back. Sorry we missed you last week, but we're here now. Keep the time stream active with your comments and questions, and always thank you to Sam Dillard and Samo Studios for our timeless intro and outro music. It rocks. This week, it's our Patron's Choice episode from the month of April, but now we're doing it in May. Sorry, we're a little late because
Time
time travel will
warp.
do that.
Life.
We did the
you
time
know
warp.
what?
Yeah.
Life.
Life. So we're doing it this week, and all things time travel, from Voyager to Enterprise, TOS to Discovery to the Orville even did time travel, but I don't think we're going to talk about the Orville. We're still waiting for that time travel story.
I still have to see I still haven't seen the Orville.
You
So.
silly.
Oh my God.
Well,
It's a really
I'll
good show.
send you a link later.
Yeah,
Please.
there you go.
Fill
So I
you in.
can, please let me be one of the cool kids.
Takako on Twitch says, "Yay for surviving week-old pizza." See, I would eat week-old pizza, and I would eat that week-old pizza cold.
I had week-old pizza
But
yesterday.
it wasn't in the fridge, you
Well, then
guys.
it would
was
be
just
weak
sitting
cold.
on
This
that
is what.
counter. And I thought about it every time. I was like, is this the day I'm going to throw away this box?
Nope.
No.
I mean, the danger area has got to be the cheese, right?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
No, it's the
Domino's
meat.
Pizza.
Not if you stay
There's
cultured.
no meat. I'm a vegetarian.
By the way,
The fake
go
meat.
ahead, Eric. Oh yeah, fake. I just had we had Impossible Burgers for dinner. I put them on the grill. They're delicious.
I had
Good,
those the other
right?
day.
I had Impossible Burger for lunch.
Yeah.
Oh.
By the way, if you listen to the show and you're wondering, when we actually start getting to the point and talk about things, we eventually do, but we also have lots of fun. So here
Lies.
we are.
Listen,
Lies.
if they're watching, they like us and they want to hear about our dumb shit.
Exactly. So, before we get into our whole timey-wimey, wibbly wobbly, Matt Smith, that's Doctor Who, never mind, that kind of time travel. Brittany, how can people support our show and maybe join our collective?
If you want to join our collective because you're 7 of fine, you'll have. Is that illegal to say? Probably. If you want to get on board with us, you'll head over to strangenewpod.com and join our Patreon. There's a little option. Ding, ding, ding. Shoot you over to our Patreon page. We have a bunch of different tiers. $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month. They all get you really awesome perks, bonus content. I mean, people that are higher up, they become like our little kind of, it's tiered by location. So you're like 10 forward, then you get cool like stickers, pins, monthly pins, lots of cool stuff.
There's
Shout
also
outs on
Like
our
this
show.
monthly pin?
Yes.
It's also
I
tiered
can't
because
wait
of all
to
the
get
puns.
that. I'm so
Yeah,
sorry.
it's tiered because you're sure to shed a tear. because of how many puns I
Puns.
make.
Yeah.
And you get discounts on merch from our store, which you can find at strangenewpod.com if you are
Mm.
one of our I think it's is it the 2, 5, and 10 levels?
I think even the
Yeah.
$1 gets a discount. I could be wrong.
yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong. Probably
Look
not.
on our website.
You got it. $2 is where the magic starts really happening.
If you're wondering,
So,
does this count? Go check it out on Patreon.
indeed. Good plug, Brittany. Who wants to give our thanks this week? Who
I
wants
will.
to?
I'll do
Eric,
it.
Eric,
Yeah.
Eric. I heard first. So we'll let
Mhm.
Eric do it.
So, thank you to our patrons, especially all of them. No, anyway. Simon Stager, Jeff Reeve, Mariah Gossett, Meg, Ann Bradley, Spotted Giraffe, Rob, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santos, Kung Hui, JD, Takako Nagumo, Kara Kennedy, Patrick Hazard, Mark, Dana Pearson, Fernanda Nogales, and Stefan Kilyanek.
Sorry, we forgot
We're
to change
supposed to
that
change
at the
that to
end. We were
SMK.
supposed to change that to SMK. We'll do that next week. That's my bad,
Oh.
SMK.
I'll
My
write it right now.
bad. My
You don't know
bad.
who you are.
You don't know who you are. Lies.
Oh,
SS.
Lies.
broke the
Double S.
temporal directive.
The list keeps getting longer. It makes me happy. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait till we're like doing the first 10 minutes and we're like, all right, everybody say it as fast as you can because there are so many of them.
Indeed.
Guys, SMK stands for Super Mortal Kombat.
Does it?
You know they haven't made a Super Mortal Kombat yet? I think there's Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate out, which is
There's
like what we
literally
all
everything.
own.
Mhm.
But there's no Super Mortal Kombat. By the way, fun movie. Fun movie.
I was
You-
going to ask.
Eric
I haven't
didn't
heard
Eric
like
has
it.
qualms.
Oh.
Let's not
Yeah.
bring it up right now.
I'm not
Well-
the only one here.
We gotta focus on Trek.
Shameless plugs. Shameless
okay,
plugs
I'm the one
real
who
quick.
needs to see
Although-
it, apparently.
Yes.
Shameless plugs.
Check
you
out
can
both of
listen
us.
to the Geeks with Kids review of Mortal Kombat. And if you don't like what they have to say, you can listen to the Everything is Permitted Mortal Kombat review.
Our brains started exploded. Just like
Okay, but is it like if you got drunk and watched it, would it be fun? Is it Velocipaster
No, it's fun. It's fun without being drunk. It's a great movie. It's not
I
a great
drank
movie. It's a
one
fun
iced tea and
movie.
I had a blast.
good because I can't drink for another 3 weeks.
It's really
So-
good. It's really good.
Nope.
It has a lot of issues, but it's
Yep.
really good. Anyway, Mortal Kombat on the other shows, Star Trek on this show. Do we at least all agree on Godzilla vs. Kong?
that
For
movie
Star
was
Trek,
stupid
That's
fun.
not my
It
jam.
was stupid.
It was stupid
didn't
fun
see it.
though.
Yeah,
mean,
the
no,
fight scenes were fun.
The fight scenes were good.
Human plot lines were like womp womp womp.
You know
Womp
what would have made
womp.
Kong versus Godzilla better? A metal sweater.
What?
What?
Hawk
Like
gets
Kong's
it.
wearing a sweater?
A metal sweater. It's from Mortal Kombat. It's okay.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's why I
Oh.
went.
Hawk
dropped my
definitely
head.
gets it.
Yeah, the metal sweater was really dumb. Anyway,
That was-
moving
You
on.
needed tonfas.
So we're not doing a strange new loop this week because Eric decided to make the outline 2 pages longer
I
than
cut
it needed to be.
pages.
So it's no strange new loop. Also, partly because we've already done a couple of time travel strange new loops. So we're gonna get right in to the time travel stuff, and I'm actually gonna hand the con over to Eric because he's gonna talk about his favorite show in the world.
It's not actually,
Enterprise.
but I do.
Yeah, I know
I
it's
do
not.
enjoy
I
it.
know
Buffy
it's
the
not, but
Vampire
I like to
I
say
love Buffy.
I love
I
Buffy.
love
Although
Buffy.
going back, there are some problematic things in it now that
Oh,
I
yeah.
see.
1000%.
with any
Unfortunate.
show though.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
listeners.
Even more so knowing the anyway. That's not. important.
Well,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
That's another podcast, guys. Let's talk about Star Trek.
Yes. So, take me away. I don't mind, but you better promise me I'll be back in time. Bum 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 ba-da. We're gonna talk about Enterprise right now, and I was gonna start off with it's a long road, but we'll get there when I get to the questions. So, there may be no Star Trek series that has been affected by time travel as much as Star Trek Enterprise, especially since the Temporal Cold War was a central plot to 3 out of the 4 seasons. That Cold War was actually instigated by several rival time-traveling factions who were each attempting to rewrite history to their own advantage. I'm giving you a brief history for those who haven't watched Enterprise. I know you're out there, Brittany. Anyway, so it's revealed that the galaxy eventually agreed to the Temporal Accords, which restricted the use of time travel, although there were some rogue planets that insisted on their right to improve their own past, even if it meant damaging the history of other worlds, like the Suliban, etc., which we see in Enterprise. While the Collective's favorite Enterprise episodes were Stormfront Part 1 and Stormfront Part 2, that's right, I'm looking at you, Rob, out there. It's revealed that those episodes revealed that paradoxes can cause damage to the fabric of time itself. This is interesting in time travel, which can unleash devastating and destructive temporal anomalies. But I decided to look at the Season 1 finale and the Season 2 opener, Shockwave Part 1 and Part 2.
Hey,
Um,
Eric, I have a question.
yeah,
There
yeah.
was on the Discord, last week when we were deciding which episodes to watch, there was another episode that came up that you were like, no. And what was that? There
Those
was,
those
a
are
two-parter?
Stormfront Part 1 and 2. Those were the Nazi ones.
Okay, now I have not seen these because you guys were like, there were Nazi episodes, and I was like,
You
what
say
the
you
fuck?
did not see those? Not see those?
I did not see those. No, I gave up on Enterprise
Shut up, Wesley.
pretty quickly.
Thank you.
It's good. There are lots of problems like Mortal Kombat in it, but it's all right for its thing. It is also a product of its time more so than any Star Trek series, which is very unfortunate. So there, yeah.
Okay, I was just curious about that.
Basically the events of Stormfront 1 and 2 just showed that that a lot of the fabric of time was very fragile and things could break it, and then because of that, ripple effects, the stone in the pond thing that we've heard so much about time travel. But that's not what Shockwave 1 and 2 did. Basically, in these episodes, the Enterprise is blamed for the obliteration of an alien colony, and thus is ordered to return to Earth, so their mission could be canceled by the Vulcans.
Just real quick, I'm going to say real quick on Twitch, I'm going to say hi to Mushrooms in Space because they're getting to watch the stream for the very first time in a very long time because they're just up randomly at 4 a.m. whatever time zone they're in. So
yeah,
welcome Mushrooms in Space.
Welcome.
Yay.
Feel my
it's
love
Cam.
of Enterprise.
It's Cam. Welcome to the stream. That's awesome.
Big
Okay,
drink
sorry.
to read this. So
Continue on the Enterprise journey.
this is going to be a short summary. So short. My
My
two-page.
ass.
It's a two-parter episode, so go
This is a
ahead.
two-part
It's a
episode.
two-part summary.
So they're blamed for this colony getting blowing up. And Archer learns from Daniels, who we earlier in the season find out is a temporal agent, that the Suliban were actually trying to sabotage Enterprise mission. Daniels gives Archer the knowledge to gather evidence so that they could, prove that they didn't cause the explosion. And then the Suliban overtake the Enterprise to continue their screwing with the timeline. Archer gets pulled in the future where the future gets destroyed. Without Archer in the past, the Federation isn't built. Anyways, Archer eventually gets back to his time, he gathers the evidence and clears the name of the Enterprise, and they continue on the mission. That last sentence is all of the second episode. That's
Yeah,
all
it
that
is.
happened in the
That's
second
all that
episode.
happens.
It's true.
So, what's interesting about these episodes is their use of time travel. Unlike other series or in the Star Trek mythos, Archer's originally sent back into his own timeline instead of watching or meeting himself to learn information to use in his current timeline. So instead of bringing his whole body into the past, he transfers his consciousness. This means that instead of fixing things in the past, which we see in other series, they continue on this timeline and course correct so that the Enterprise continues its work. What are your thoughts on this type of time travel?
I thought it was neat. I'm going to continue talking. I just wanted to give people. This was a better two-part episode than the other two episodes I saw for Enterprise. Those I was just like, ooh, Archer's mean.
Archer's
and here,
still
he's
mean
still
in
kind
this.
of a meanie, but this one was more interesting to me because I like time travel. And I'm not gonna lie, at the beginning of it, when they destroy the alien colony, I literally was like, whoa, what? And I was like, Paragon is now Paragon. You know what I mean? I was like, talk about Shockwave, and I was like, oh, that's why the episode's called that.
Get off my bridge.
I mean, it's true. They floxed around and found out, this Mother Tucker appeared a few times. It was interesting. But I definitely feel like this episode, because this Star Trek was specifically around the early 2000s, like the way they used the timeline being corrected in the way they did was super interesting because it's not the same as other Trek has done before that. And also it was very much reminiscent of like the 9/11 attacks. And I could tell, I was like, oh, they're definitely pointing it this way. Like the way the destruction of the city looked like the World Trade Center. And I thought that was interesting that they made a plot kind of like surround that of this like sort of devastation.
They actually had to take out a building in the future San Francisco because it looked too much like 9/11.
Well, and the library looks like the Manhattan Library, right, like the Free Library of New York City, like right across the street from Grand Central Station, which I thought was very interesting, even though it's supposed to be San Francisco.
I was pretty surprised they went to a library and they didn't bring Reed.
I feel like the idea of this story was really interesting, and I thought the first part was better than the second part. But yeah, like that it was that time where like a lot of people were sort of using that 9/11 kind of imagery, which is like, it was too soon, I feel like, because, that hadn't happened that long ago. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody here. Brittany, how old were you when that happened?
Why is this always a thing about my age?
No, I'm
I
just
know,
curious, but
yeah.
you don't have to tell me. Well, it's
I was
just the
in second
feeling.
grade. I guess I was 8 years old, 7 years old, something like that. But my mom actually worked on the World Trade Center and was supposed to
Crazy.
be there that day, working on the
Oh.
antenna
Oh,
on one of
jeez.
the towers. Luckily, she literally fixed it. Like, it was over the weekend. I think it was like a Monday or Tuesday it happened. So she fixed it like the day or two before and then went to go fix something else that broke. So she like survived. She would have been there that day.
That's
Wow.
crazy.
So yes, I do
Jesus.
remember it very distinctly.
Yeah, that'll save a memory. Yeah, no, I was just curious. I didn't mean to like call you out or anything, but I
I was
just
just like, oh.
Well, it's always interesting
Well,
to
it's
see
like-
what younger people remember of that time. Like, 'cause
Yeah,
I
for
was in
sure.
Yeah.
university when it happened, so it's very distinctly like burned into my memory.
I
I
think
was in
I'm
high
the
school.
I think I'm the lone New Yorker here who grew up in Queens, and my dad worked in Manhattan, and I was in a really weird time in my life. I was at boarding school, and then I couldn't do anything about it, and I couldn't see my dad, and I remember being like totally freaked out.
Mhm.
Luckily he wasn't working in the city that day. Not that I think he would have been close, but it still like freaks you out. Like,
Yeah, it
Yeah.
it's your
does.
home, and like you have family that work there. Like, it just was a shitty situation.
It's especially
for-
bad because, you know, they all the phone lines and stuff had to be shut down. Like my
Yeah.
mom was actually one of those people that had to shut everything down, or else the whole East Coast would have been wiped out. That's the reason why they set up everything differently nowadays. I could tell you for like hours because my mom works on that stuff. But yeah, not being able to contact your loved ones is messed up. So I remember I got pulled from class. I was taken home. Couldn't talk to my mom. We didn't know if my mom was even alive. So
Man,
but this
that's
episode was good because I was like, I get what they're doing here, and it was like it's pretty powerful. So I think that's why I enjoyed this episode a little more. Like the time travel was cool, and then also that aspect of like, wow, they completely obliterated this. How are they going to fix this?
Mhm.
And they don't fix the actual destruction.
No.
They
No.
just show that they didn't do it. So that was more powerful to me. I was like, oh shit, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. This episode I think resonates more with me watching it now after honestly watching this past season of Discovery and them mentioning like the Temporal Cold War and kind of being like relevant again, and just like, you know, how many decisions and who knows, like, you know, how many literal like, you know, tears in time were created during this war, because, you know, at the end, you know, I think you hear Vance or one of them say that anything temporal, right, was outlawed. The use of time travel outlawed. Like Discovery showing up made them criminals. That's how big of a deal the Temporal Cold War was. So this had relevance again, and it was really fun actually watching this episode and hearing about that, and the fact that they were in the 31st century and Disco now takes place in the 32nd century. So it was fun to kind of get a refresh, and I really, like Brittany mentioned, thought that it was like there's consequences, right? Like they don't go and fix the situation, they just prove that it wasn't them, and that's a big deal because that is a time incursion, right? Like
And even
that.
when they prove, the Vulcans don't care.
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, this
Because
is
they
still a
still don't
mistake
believe
that
it,
you
yeah.
Well,
should-"
because the
No.
Vulcans are
That's
Full
really
Game and Clutch,
interesting.
though.
It's really interesting, the idea that it's not necessarily, the timeline isn't something they can necessarily go back and fix properly in that, because even when you look back at old episodes of Star Trek and that, there was always stuff that got left behind and got broken in their timeline.
oh, the amount of shit that Kirk fucked up. I mean,
Oh,
Yeah.
for sure.
come
fact,
on,
it-
man.
Kirk
it
is like a whole
remind-
file.
It reminds me of this old episode of The Flash I was watching, and that Jay Garrick was trying to show Barry in that the effects of like what happens when he alters it, and that and he uses the coffee cup in that.
Yeah.
He showed, yeah, you remember that? He's
And
like,
you can't quite ever get it back together.
no, you can glue it back together, but the cracks are still there.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good analogy.
Dang, that's
Yeah.
deep.
That is
I
good.
feel that. I
I-
am the coffee cup.
I love that the auto mod is deleting things on our Twitch.
No.
Sorry, I'm using from below.
Is it
Anyway,
because they're doing all caps?
yep. Anyway, I'm gonna continue on because Enterprise is gonna be another 30 minutes. We're gonna talk about it more. Don't worry. I am a big time travel geek. Like going back to the Future, which just blew my mind, and then it just kept going. I love physics and all that. So it's interesting that this is also one of the only examples in Star Trek of the predestination paradox, where any attempt this is what that paradox is in an easier explanation. This is where any attempt by a time traveler to change events in the past would subsequently result in that person playing a role in creating that event that they were trying to prevent and not changing anything. So basically, the events are predestined to happen the way over and over and over again. So we see this in two examples. Daniel's trying to prevent the destruction of the future by bringing Archer to the future, and then the destruction still happens. And then the Suliban trying to stop the Enterprise mission, by destroying the colony and whatnot. And then it ended up, them continuing their mission. What do you think of this type of paradox being used in this show?
Well, we've seen it before with like Doctor Who. There's certain events that you can't go back and undo because they're too
Fixed points in time.
Yeah.
Fixed points. Thank you.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, which is why I'm like Yanto. But I like it. I think it because it means there are some rules. Like, you gotta have some rules.
Yeah. I mean, in science fiction, you have to, or else like things can become broken pretty quickly. And it's like none of this is certain in our reality yet because we can't prove it.
Well,
yeah, Doctor Who is.
Yeah.
They even, he says wibbly wobbly, timey wimey, and they unexplain half the stuff they explain in that because they're just like, time. It's a fickle beast.
Well, at the risk of setting off Brittany, I mean, like, there's the whole different time streams and everything that happened in Endgame with getting the stones and Steve bringing the stones back and creating his own freaking pocket universe.
So many different alternate
paradoxes
realities.
upon paradox. Yeah, like,
I'll allow it as time travel. It's just my least favorite form of time travel.
Yeah. I get really like, I love time travel too, but when these paradoxes happen, like, I definitely get uber confused. I'm sure you guys too, but at some point I would just like there to be hey, we're going to use the same time travel in all the sci-fi and like and have
But then it would get so boring because then you would know all the time. Like, it's more exciting to me when there's a different sort of time travel, and I think I know because I read a lot of time travel stuff. Like, I've played games, I watch movies, and then when there's something that actually like is like, oh, they did that.
Yeah,
it's more fun.
I like at least that like Kirk and crew kind of set up like the going around the sun to like go back in time, and they did that a few times, and it was like, okay, I could somewhat buy this.
Superman
it was a little bit
literally reversed the rotation of Earth, and that makes no goddamn sense. Did I love that movie as a kid? Did I cry every time he did it? I was like, yes, go save Lois. But it made no.
Now we know.
I
about
love that movie.
science.
Damn, so much.
I love that movie so much.
Stargate, you guys. Stargate always did time travel the best. Loved it every time, and there was consequences. You had to be careful not to like fuck up.
I feel
the
like
future.
Stargate is purposely ridiculous enough that they're hiding like real facts in there. Sometimes
Yeah.
I watch it and I'm just like, I feel like you're trying to tell me something that's like some deep NASA shit.
It's
I
like
like the time travel. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's like Futurama. Futurama had really good time travel because they had
Exactly, and that's
physicists
because
on
like
their
people legitimately
writers.
were like PhDs writing it. So I feel like SG1 is the same way.
It
where it's, like,
wasn't my
legit scientists are
favorite.
like, "Here you go."
It wasn't my favorite of the two SG1 movies they made after the series ended, but I think Continuum actually handled time travel really well when like Ball made it so he ended up like ruling all the Goa'uld.
Yeah.
and
I thought you meant the sci-fi show Continuum, and I
No,
was like,
no, no,
oh,
like,
I
so,
could
like-
talk for 8
so like
hours
I
about
love that
Vala
show.
and everyone
Me
like started
too, that show's crazy.
disappearing, and they end up going through the gate, and like Daniel ends up losing his leg.
Oh, that
And-
one.
and-
Yeah.
For once, Colonel O'Neill's son is alive.
Yes. Yes.
Just one
that's right.
fucking time.
So I like, that worked for me too, and that they actually like solved the issues by going. I like when they go and fix things. This
Yeah.
worked for me in Enterprise, but I just do like when they go and fix the timeline.
Yeah.
I like like I said earlier, I like the consequences of not fixing the issue. I know we were trying to talk about paradoxes, but they confused the hell out of me, and I'm already confused. So.
There's
I love a
actually
good paradox.
there's actually talk that a lot of the time Cold War stuff and all the changes that the temporal agents did affected the universe so much that every time we see a time paradox in like a future Trek, it was a direct result of them fucking around with the timeline.
Oh, that makes so
I'd
much sense.
accept that because there's so many times that random temporal distortions happen
Yes,
that aren't caused by the actual
yes.
crew of the show. Yes, Eric, go off.
Yeah.
Go off, Eric.
But this
Yeah.
this also means that there are timelines where none of these interferences happen. So when Daniels was talking to Archer, he's like, none of this happened, so we're trying to fix everything. But that's in itself creating this new timeline, right? But does that mean that in the original unaltered timeline, there's no "Where My Heart Will Take Me" as their theme song.
No, that's just
No.
always there,
Bro.
dude.
That's a fixed point in
I
time.
can't believe
That
you
is a
did that.
fixed point in
You know,
time.
I actually
He set
do
up this
like
whole
this
thing to
song.
make that.
It grows on you. It's
Yeah,
so
like, well,
bad.
It doesn't. It
I
doesn't.
love it,
does.
and I'm not
does.
ashamed now.
It does. Okay, one last thing. Unless you guys have anything else to talk about for this episode, I think that's
Tell me
pretty
about paradoxes.
I just wanted. I just want to just say like that was a really cool thing that you brought up about like this theory that everything that's happened in the future because of the temporal Cold War with time has been because of it. So like, dude, take what we're going to talk about later with DS9, them hitting like a random singularity that made the transporter thing go
Mhm.
screwy.
Mhm.
and their
you know,
chromatic particles
Yeah,
on their
yeah,
shields.
exactly. So like I buy that because there's the temporal Cold War. There are just like ripples and tears in time everywhere, in the quadrant and in the galaxy. So I love
Enterprise
that.
at least makes every other show make sense.
Yeah, more or less.
If not
sure.
just that.
Yeah. So here's a fun fact. This is fun fact time. I need a clip for that. Fun fact time. So unfortunately, we never find out who the shadowy figure that the Suliban were working for. Like, we don't find out who that person is on Enterprise because they were gonna start exploring that in season 5 and forward. But in 2012, producer Brandon Braga shared some thoughts about this because he had been developing the storyline. Apparently, the future guy was Archer, who was trying to correct history. He was pure in his own mind, trying to repair a corrupt future by influencing his innocent past self. Thoughts?
That
buy it.
probably would have made sense.
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
I buy
The
it.
shadowy man in everything. Like, isn't there a shadow man in Mass Effect too?
Yeah.
Like-
There's
The
always
cigarette
some
smoking
shadowy
man.
man.
No, but then I was gonna say like the smoking man in
Yeah.
X-Files. Like, there's always these specific people that like are too involved, and you're like, what is their backstory? What is going on here?
Why
and
are
that's
they
a good
here?
conspiracy.
Lexi just read my mind, by the way, on Twitch and said it's all David Cronenberg, which
I would
Yeah.
not be mad about that.
No.
What if it
Nope.
was? What if it was?
I
know,
would
man.
love it if it was
Section
Archer.
31, please confirm.
yeah, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
Archer, Cronenberg, one
yeah,
of them.
Rob's saying that wasn't one of the other ideas considered that he'd be a Romulan from the future. That was an early idea, but Brandon Braga said that was never really considered as a real possibility. He really wanted it to be Archer.
I mean, if that would have happened, he would have had the Brandon bragging rights, you know?
Oh boy. With that, as long as Eric is done, I will take it to Star
I
Trek
am.
Discovery before Brittany makes any more bad puns.
I know it's a long road to get to Discovery, but
Only like 100-something years, right? Not too
I'm
long.
surprised
a
we
road.
don't have like a button yet.
Get
with
in
the,
trouble.
it's
Yeah.
been a long
It's got to be
road.
special. We can't do it until after we do our rendition.
It'll
Get
be
us to
us.
25 patrons, folks.
Oh god. I'm
Just
gonna be
do it.
sick that day, guys.
No, you're
I'll be-
not.
I'll be playing the music. All right, auto tune me. Just something.
Or
So,
remix you in.
as we move on to Star Trek Discovery, as I mentioned earlier, these shows, Enterprise and Discovery, actually very well connected now, just due to the references and conclusion of the Temporal Cold War and being mentioned how that fucked up a lot of shit so much that like anything temporal was banned, and it was banned enough where it sounds like everyone in the universe was like, yeah, okay, hold stop, we're not touching this shit anymore because things got that bad. So that was still taking place in the 31st century. We now know that Discovery is in the 32nd century. It hasn't been that long since it's ended. And now, even Discovery itself being in a future that we've never seen in Star Trek, being the furthest from any show we've ever seen. I mean, that's pretty sweet. So let's talk about that time jump and how, I guess at this point in time, not only is like I said, the use of all time travel banned. Sorry, wifey got me a beer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beer
Okay.
time.
what kind of beer?
What are you drinking, Julian?
I am drinking Wander into Existence. It is a Hefeweizen
Ooh.
from Odd
Look at
Logic
that Aurora
Brewing Company, which is
Borealis.
local, and it is
Cool.
delicious.
Been a long road
I've got my
getting
Topo
from
Chico
here to
mineral
here.
water because, trying to be all healthy and shit.
I'm
But it
drinking
looks
tea.
Feels like boo. Tea?
So-
What kind of tea?
This is a green tea because I'm Asian.
Hmm.
How do we feel about when Discovery first shows up and how they handled the time jump into the 32nd century, and basically like Cronenberg and Admiral Vance basically being like, we believe you and we believe everything about what you're telling us, but you're also criminals because even if you don't know about it, the shit's been outlawed.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love the idea that time travel is such a big deal that their appearance was, again, a really big deal to everyone around them. Like that's a great way to show the gravitas of the effects of time travel.
Literally, there was a lot of gravity involved.
I kind of wanted to see. I've always liked the episodes and shows and books where when you have someone out of time and they're sort of coping with the future, like the things that are amazing and the things that are shocking and the things that are confusing. And that's one of the only things I wish we would have gotten was stuff like more like of the crew coping with the future. Like they're coping with being their families are dead and all of they're sort of in a place they recognize but not really.
Mhm.
But I wanted to see like the holy shit, that's amazing,
You
that
want
kind of
Michael's
stuff.
year, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want
Yeah.
hoverboards to show up, and they're like,
What?
Hoverboards. Hoverboards.
I really like that Discovery went such like a realistic route with having them jump to the future because it's already huge stakes, and every season of Discovery has been such huge stakes. But then having them show up in the future, and like you said, like initially they're dealing with, they already knew in their minds, like I'm gonna probably will never see my family again. Like these are the things I'm giving up. But then to actually experience that when they got to the future, and they're like,
Yeah.
wow, and they're dealing with all this PTSD and all this trauma, and then being able to let go of these people that they've lost and this new future that they have that they don't understand. Like it's so solid, and I think they did a really good job of building what looks like a future in Star Trek, because a lot of it is familiar enough for us since we watched Star Trek, but it's still also so new. Where you're like, wow, this is what the Federation looks like. This is what ships could look like. The
Mhm.
nacelles are detached. Like I remember experiencing that all with you guys,
Yeah.
and it was so exciting. But also, you're just like, what else has changed? Like, are we fighting these people now? Like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Even the Romulans and Vulcans, like now they share a planet. What?
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
weird because like they're sort of dealing with all of this, their loss of their families and friends and whatnot. But really, they only talked about it for a little bit, and then they showed up at that big tree in San Francisco, and everything seemed to be fine after that. Which
They
I
hugged
sort
the
of,
tree and they coped.
yeah.
Yeah. I think Aaron's right though. I hope they touch more on that, and I hope we get a little bit more of that in season 4, which maybe is going to be a little bit more episodic than serialized. I guess we'll see. I'm still stoked that we're getting that this year. Like I'm
Yes.
getting goosebumps just talking about it.
This pod will never be on hiatus.
We're gonna be so
No, this isn't a
tired.
seasonal show. This is just we're always on, baby. We're always on.
Star Trek is
Trek
on, we're on.
365.
Star Trek's
Yeah.
not on, we're still.
But yeah, just going back to like, coming this far in the future, and even, getting outside of the fantasy of it and going into the writer's room and I guess, their war room, like thinking of like, how are we going to make this different, and what are the stakes, like having Earth kind of be like, closed off, and that's got to be a shell shock to the human crew aboard Discovery, and then having Starfleet basically be like a splinter group. Yeah, I just think it was handled so well. This isn't the first time though that Discovery dealt with timey-wimey bullshit. We had that great Harry Mudd episode, Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad, which is one of my favorite episodes of Discovery.
I think that's one of my favorites too. Like I think that might be my favorite because it was the first one that felt episodic but still like had really high stakes.
Yeah. Well, I think so many people compare that episode to, I'll never remember the name of it. I think I want to say it's a season 3, 4, or 5. It's a long range episode of SG-1 where Jack and Teal are stuck in a time loop, and there's
Yes, that was the shit.
that one scene with Jack just hitting golf balls into the Stargate.
Yeah.
and Hammond's like, "Oh, Neil, what the hell are you doing?" He's like, "Forward in the middle of my," he goes, in the middle of my backswing. Yeah, such a, I
Or
loved. Go ahead, Hawk.
Time and Effect in TNG, season 5, and the one where they were caught in that loop and they meet Kelsey Grammer at the end.
And the Enterprise keeps
yeah.
getting blown up. Yep.
Yeah.
Rob got it for me. Season 4, Window of Opportunity.
Window of Opportunity.
Yes.
That episode.
I was right in the seasons 3, 4, and 5 bit. What did we think about Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad? The second time we get to see Harry Mudd on Discovery.
Is that the time loop one?
Yeah,
Where they had the
where he
party?
kills Lorca like 50 different
A
ways.
million
Yeah.
times.
That one,
Right.
I really enjoyed that episode. It was a good time. I remember watching season 1. That was one of the highlights, I think, of season 1 for me.
Yeah.
Because he would just like destroy them and over and over again. He's like, "We've done this." Like, and Michael's trying to catch on the whole time. It was so good.
Yeah.
I like the party in the beginning. It just because we're so used to seeing people. I think we talked about it when the episode came out, but we're used to like classical concerts and shit, and they've got like solo cups, and they're doing their thing. And I love Anthony Rapp in this episode. Like
Yeah,
he's
he's really
solid. It's just like it's almost like a perfect episode. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, the only thing missing was the choo-choo train, right?
The choo-choo
that
that should have happened.
Choo-choo.
it would have been
Oh, I
amazing.
bet I guess it would have been ahead of its time though. Well,
Way ahead of its time.
Maybe
Way
they're
out.
the ones who started it.
Maybe-
oh shit.
I love me any Groundhog Day episode. So
Yes.
Yes.
seeing this as a Groundhog Day episode, like, just wonderful. All of
Plus,
whole
it
cast.
introduced us to time crystals.
Yes, it did.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
I briefly want to go back to Discovery hopping into the future because Spotted Giraffe in the chat said something earlier about the Kelvinverse mention in Discovery as well, and how the Temporal Cold War was so screwed up that you had time agents going into that time stream, and that is a really cool way. And we've heard that Alex Kurtzman is trying to like kind of reconnect the entire universe into one universe again. So to have that connection is also really neat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it reminds me sort of how the DC TV shows, all of the like Arrowverse, they used like one of those big group episodes to sort of pull all of the different worlds
Crisis
together.
on
And
Infinite Earths.
Yep.
yes,
Except
and
Superman and Lois is like not.
Something.
They're in a different universe.
There's two Batwomans. It's a whole
But there's
thing.
not supposed to be a different universe.
I
anymore.
know.
well, I'm okay with them having a couple because it is fun when they go to different universes. But I do
Yeah.
like all I'm saying is like that's the same thing.
No,
I
yeah,
think
it is.
pulling your
It is.
universes together and making that work somehow. I don't think they have to be in the same universe,
Mhm.
but I like the idea that they could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
The
Superman and
original
Lois
Crisis
is
makes
Earth
me
too.
cry.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
They also did an awesome thing that you wouldn't expect on any DC shows, that they brought in the film franchise as well by introducing the Flash
Yeah, the
from
Flash.
Yeah, honestly, I think those films blow, but I think the shows are amazing. So.
It's nice to see them connected. Though.
Yeah.
It's always cool
Yeah.
when they do that type of fan service.
Hashtag
And
Snyder Cut.
comparing each other's costumes, that was great.
Yeah. We also had the episode The War Without, The War Within. That's the penultimate episode of season 1 where Disco shows up back from the mirror universe, but Stamets has overshot where they went. So they basically went into the future a little bit. And that future is that like the Klingons were literally on the doorstep to Earth. They had taken Starbase when the war was about to end. And the ramifications of that, basically Starfleet making a very ballsy move and putting a nasty bomb in the core of Kronos because of it. It's not exactly a time travel episode, but it's an example of time travel having kind of crazy adverse effect on the universe, because who's to say had Discovery gone back to the right time if it would have still been able to be utilized as a weapon that could jump anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
A very good callback to the TNG episode we're going into next.
Yes.
Well, this also makes me think of the whole second season. Like the Red Angel was a jump from the future to the past,
Basically.
and
Yep.
seeing how
And
much
that
of
was a
that must
whole-
have screwed up too.
The whole thing.
Like, I can only imagine what the temporal agents were thinking of when that was going on. Like
Temporal agents probably sat that one out, or just like
like, this is too much.
We're not touching this
Michael
with
Burnham
a
is a
10-foot pole.
crazy bitch. Like, this is amazing.
I kind
I
of want
love season
someone.
2.
Mhm.
I want them to jump back into 90s Trek time and then just fucking use all this like amazing, all that digital technology and shit. And like I want them to be on the Enterprise or Voyager and have them all there and it looks the same. Like
Yeah. Like
They
a Trials and
don't even-
Tribulations sort of thing, where they appear in an episode that already happened.
yes. And like don't try to rebuild the sets and be like, this is what Voyager looks like in 2021, like how they would build it now.
Yeah.
I want it to be like the same shit. And they're like, oh, this ship is different.
Do they get to meet up with
Um,
Sarah Silverman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Please.
Yes.
Rob,
Future's End.
Rob on
Good
Twitch
Dr.
brought up
Ragnar.
a good point. Missed opportunity. Should have put the bomb in the core of Praxis and hint that it went off in undiscovered country.
Should have put the bomb in a
Mm.
soccer ball and kicked it at them.
Do we have to talk about Picard on this
Sorry,
show?
what?
The show wasn't supposed to be a
Who?
Picard show.
There? I don't think any time stuff.
Sorry,
happened.
we don't mean to hate on Picard that much. But
Hey,
Well,
We
if
liked
make
a lot of
better,
it.
We
It
won't
was
have
great.
to.
don't like a lot of it.
We like certain parts of it.
Certainly.
Let
We
me
like
say.
the part that's coming, we think.
We think. Yes. Anything else on Discovery before we move on to those old science guys?
What do you
Those
think, Hawk?
old science guys.
Good. All right. Moving right along to the original series. I believe that it was mentioned in DS9 that and Brittany already said it, that Kirk has his own file, right?
Basically.
Just
Yeah.
person non grata.
Jadzia has read it front to back, looking for stock notes.
Yeah, time travel and Captain Kirk go together like peanut butter and jelly. And save for Janeway, maybe, the Enterprise crew have just racked up tons and tons of paperwork and temporal violations. Let's talk about an episode of Star Trek that's very widely considered to be possibly, if not the best episode of the original series, if not of all Trek.
All of Trek.
And that is, City on the Edge of Forever. In it, Kirk and Spock use the Guardian of Forever to correct a mistake made by a crazed Dr. McCoy who accidentally injects himself with medicine he had just used to save Sulu. This episode takes place in 1930 during the Great Depression. Thoughts on this very classic episode of Star Trek?
I watched this
First time.
This is your first time watching it?
This is the first time I watched this episode.
You go
because I've
first,
always
then.
seen clips-
Yeah.
I was gonna say I've always seen clips of it, like McCoy's like crazy face and like the sweat and everything. He's like, murderers, assassins, like stuff like that. And I was like, that must be a fun episode. And then I watched it, and it was a fun episode.
Mm-hmm.
There's only like one line in it where I was just like,
Yep.
But-
Yep.
yeah. But to be fair, that Spock makeup was really, really bad.
Yep.
But the Guardian of Forever, it was so cool because like my experience with the Guardian of Forever has been from Discovery now, and I'm going back and seeing it, and I feel like I have a heightened appreciation for this episode already, even though it's my first time, because this is where this appears, this is where they got it from, and the fact that it kind of like displays time going by really quickly, and you have to pick the right moment to jump in, like that's a cool concept. It's kind of like jumping into a well and hoping you land in the right point. Like
That's
some
an
Kagome
insane
jumping into
concept
the
if you
past
think
of feudal
about it.
Japan for Inuyasha, it's just short of shit. But oh man, it was a fun one. It's a good Kirk episode, I feel like. But also, did you really fall in love with her? Did you?
I mean, it's Kirk. I would say that he really did fall in love with her, but I think it's also James T. Kirk at the same
It
time.
is,
He
yeah.
falls
Really
in
falls in love
late-
with everybody.
yeah.
He doesn't fall in love. He falls in lust, and then he gets over it, and then he
Yeah.
moves on.
I think if I would watch this in the 60s, like as a person who's only experienced so much of sci-fi, and you know, if this was on TV, I would have probably like audibly gasped at some points when like, whoa, this is time, and then, oh my god, she's supposed to die. Like I could hear like the audience reaction as I was like watching it.
Yeah, I
That's
sorry. I was just gonna say I haven't seen this this episode since probably like the early 2000s, and I'm surprised at how good it still is. Like it could be like an episode now, and it would be just as compelling as it.
I was
back
saying
then.
that in the chat today, the same exact thing. Yeah.
Yeah, even my kid was interested in it. She's like, she doesn't really care about stuff I watch.
Yep.
Sometimes I don't know.
Hawk, I saw your eyes light up.
Yeah, I was thinking it brings up this kind of horrible paradox about war and technology. Because the reason in that she needs to die is because she creates a peace movement in that alters the course of history, and thus technologically in that the human race doesn't advance, and if they don't advance, Kirk and them are stuck there. And that's like, oh, I just found that like amazing. Like for considering like this is Star Trek, it's it was made during the Cold War and that when everybody was terrified about like what would happen the day after tomorrow, and it bringing up this idea that without war and that we would be stuck in the same place.
I liked its social critiques, even for the time. Like you're like, wow, this was only made in the 60s, but the fact that they work and they talk about the fact that how much they're working for only denotes so much of a salary. And he's like, well, after buying food and doing this, I can't even afford the things that you need to make this other thing. So it's like, yeah, you can't afford hobbies. You can't afford to move up in the world. And then on top of that, they are already realizing how like militaristic this area of Earth is, and it's right before the U.S. joining into World War II, like 10 years later, and the fact that they're like, wow, this woman is coming up with these great ideas, but she's way too early with them. And as much as they love that because they're with the Federation and they're all for humanity learning and growing with these things, it's rough because you're like, yeah, she has to die because unfortunately, we got to make sure the Germans aren't able to learn how to do this because they'll develop the A-bomb before us and then they take over the world. So you're this is heavy.
Isn't it amazing how well, because I already seen all the episodes that I watched today, but I was watching them for refreshers. It's amazing watching City on the Edge of Forever. And I think I watched Tomorrow was yesterday after that, and then right into past tense. It's amazing how past tense and City on the Edge of Forever, they almost connect in a really weird and eerie, depressing way.
Yeah,
Because
it's
like,
almost cyclical because this is
Yeah.
the 1930s they're focusing on, and then literally the 2024, it's almost the 2030s. So you're like, wow, 100 years later, humanity is still stuck in the same cycle of not caring about people. You
Yep.
have the 21st Street mission in this one, and then in the next one, you have sanctuary cities.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree.
Any other thoughts on City on the Edge of Forever? It's such a freaking amazing episode.
I will say I enjoy time episodes. Like this one also stands out to me as much as it's them jumping and traveling back into time to stop their friend from possibly doing something. It's also one of those episodes that hinges on somebody's life or death and that one person, how they can affect change in the world. Because there's always like the butterfly effect of like, oh, if you do something to this object or you cause this event to happen, like monumentous things can happen. But this is just one woman who is making a difference in her community. Basically, whether she lives or dies would determine like how the world is shaped afterwards. So I like that it depended on one normal human's life and not a character in Star Trek, if that made any sense.
Yeah.
And the fact that it was a good person, it's not the debate over whether we should go back and, if you
Yeah.
had the chance to go
It's like,
back and
let's
kill
shoot
Hitler. Yeah.
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 Oh, speaking of Doctor Who,
Instead,
let's
the
go
car
kill
hit her.
Hitler. Oh,
Oh my god,
love
I
it.
love that. Oh, sorry, I just came from my cousin's gay gypsy bar mitzvah or whatever, and you're like, oh my god,
yeah.
I can't.
We also watched the episode, which is a little bit more of a fun time travel episode. Tomorrow's yesterday, which actually only is a few episodes before City on the Edge of Forever aired. What did this was kind of a more wonky take on time travel, a little less, I don't know, believable. What did we think of this episode?
It was fun.
I missed this one on the watch, so you guys are gonna have to tell me what happened.
It was fun and unconsequential, right? This dude,
Yeah.
this
Tomorrow's
dude just
yesterday?
gets teleported on the ship. He gets dick around for a while, and then he goes back.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, did he enjoy the future?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He found out he was gonna have a son.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
but then forgets everything that happens anyway, so does it really
Yeah.
matter?
No.
No.
Why does he forget?
Because they beam
'Cause
him back, like they beam him
Before he
back.
needs-
Yeah, well, he beams him back right before me, and the way that they did the way that they did time travel in this episode is they basically like did a time warp or a warp in reverse by going around the sun, and then they basically beamed the two people that they had beamed onto the Enterprise from the military base back at the exact moment that they had grabbed them before, so they just never had been on the Enterprise and forgot completely what happened. It was really weird.
It's
All
a
right,
weird
I
one.
mean,
They-
I think it's
they
more
basically
fun when they
Supermaned it.
remember.
Yeah, I was
They
just gonna say.
Supermaned
Damn
it where
it.
time literally rewound, and
Yeah.
therefore the events never happened, which
Yeah.
is also fun. But it's more fun when you like do time travel stuff, and then only one or two people remembers what happens. Oh my
Yeah.
god! Oh, anyway,
Yeah.
I'm getting excited.
The best things that came out of this episode, they established the temporal mechanics for time travel that they'd used in the voyage home, and you got to see that awesome thing where Kirk throws himself, like catapults himself into three soldiers at once.
That's
The
true.
fight
I can
scenes
just
were
imagine
awesome.
it in my head.
I
It's a
really like-
popular
Oh my
gif
God.
right now.
Kirk
I really
fights like a fucking idiot.
I really liked the fact that the Enterprise was like a UFO at the beginning. Because
Yes.
I'm like, this is amazing. The fact that they appeared and they didn't even realize they were back in time yet, and then immediately like the Air Force sends jets and they're just like, take care of these dudes, and I'm like, oh, you're a UFO.
Yeah.
It was
Oh,
really
man.
cool. And I liked when the dude asked for chicken soup. I'm sorry, but this is just like part of the episode that I actually really liked, because he's just like, he mentions that he would like a chicken soup, and then the other guy goes over and just is like, boop, and it's right there, and the look on his face is like,
That's the dream,
glorious.
man.
I would be
Replicators
the
are
same,
in
man.
the
Like-
dream.
Guys,
he
it already
tasted it with his
exists.
finger, he's like,
Campbell's cup of soup, the things you put in the microwave for like 30
Yeah.
seconds, and
it's
there
like
it is.
that
How dare
30
you.
overacting
seconds.
too.
I
How
want it
dare
now.
you.
We're almost there. We're
so
almost
good.
there.
It's so
I'll
gross.
send you a recipe for good soup. That's a crime.
Rob on Twitch says this episode is fun because for pretty much the entire episode, nothing goes right for the Enterprise crew.
That's true.
Everything that can go wrong does. And they have to like,
Basically,
yeah.
they literally have to go. They go to break in to steal the evidence of them being a UFO and taking the dude to begin with, and then in the end, they just reverse time to get rid of it anyway.
Yeah, I
and
was
they're
gonna
like,
say
well,
that
no
seems
evidence.
pointless.
Well, because they
Why
get caught. Because they get
Oh, okay.
caught.
Yeah, they get caught
so-
because it's a military base, and they showed up in their stupid Starfleet.
Apparently,
outfits. I'm like,
Starfleet at that time
Hello,
taught
computer?
nothing about stealth tactics.
Oh, definitely not.
So
I don't think Kirk would adhere to it anyways.
They
No,
tried an
probably
endgame
not.
heist and it did not work.
when in doubt,
Thanos won.
when in doubt, Kirk fu. That's all you need.
Double
to know.
fist everywhere.
What if Thanos
Double
showed
fist,
up in
double-
Star Trek world? Like, we need to
No.
talk about that.
Brittany hates Thanos. Don't trigger her, please.
No, I'm
I
just
will
saying,
talk
like,
Thanos
no,
with
they
you
would
all
never,
day, Aaron. I
They
love
would
Thanos.
never cross over.
but-
I'm gonna
Although
have to go
Marvel
back
did
and listen to
try-
that episode of Everything is Permitted.
Oh, please don't go listen to our Endgame review. It is one of my least
Oh,
proud
really?
podcast moments.
I don't think I was
Okay.
even.
You weren't part of the show
Yeah, I
yet.
wasn't part of the
and
show yet.
going off topic real quick. I spent 17 hours editing that episode
Oh.
because
Whoa.
we had guests that were not great guests, and it
Oh.
was
You ever want to
rough.
make a new podcast about Endgame?
We'll do it. We'll
I'm
do
here
like a
for it.
5-year look back.
God,
soon.
5 years.
I've actually got some good stories about Endgame. I've got like a cool insider story, so
You do.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good.
You told
I've
me
already
though.
told it, haven't I?
Yeah, you have.
To
I
us,
tell
but
all my
not the
stories
others.
right
I don't think it
away.
was on the pod, but I think he told us off
Oh,
screen.
okay.
I am going to hand the con over to Lieutenant Hawk, who is going to take us through the next generation.
Yeah.
Give me warp.
A 5, 6, 7, 8.
So good.
We are going to jump into what is probably it's one of the best episodes of TNG, one of the best episodes of Star Trek, probably one of my personal favorites. Yesterday's Enterprise. There was this article in the Hollywood Reporter, and that it was celebrating the 30-year anniversary. That they did an extensive interview with Ronald D. Moore and Ira Stephen Bear about it, and they referred to it as the episode that saved TNG. So, a little backstory with it, and that apparently season 3 was could have been their year of hell. Michael Pilar was only like a year into like being the showrunner. As Ronald D. Moore said, he was still trying to figure his way around sci-fi and that, and in particular how sci-fi, worked on Star Trek. This episode was originally a draft by Eric Stillwell, and apparently was really different. According to him, the original draft had the crew of the Enterprise meeting up with the the Enterprise C. The backstory of the Enterprise C was a little different. They knew it was destroyed in some incident. It was never clear. They were basically made to keep the Enterprise C crew in the dark and that, but get them back into their own timeline and that without them knowing why or whatever. Also, there was a subplot that had Data and a member of the Enterprise C crew having a holodeck pirate adventure with
What is
Mm,
with
singing.
them in pirate adventures in the
Because they're
holiday?
not busy.
Somebody
There's not
really
shit
wanted
going
this
on.
for like every movie.
I left earlier when you were talking because I read ahead and saw that.
Yeah.
And I was like,
me
God
too.
damn it.
Can you imagine it?
I kind of want to see that. Is it like when you go to medieval times, but there's that pirate one? Is it like that?
You know they were singing, right? It was Pirates of Penzance.
There had to be
version.
sea
Yeah.
I was gonna say
shanties. There
Pirates
had
of
to be
Penzance.
sea
There were
shanties.
supposed to be sea shanties, everything
Oh
in
my
that.
God, yes.
Can we
Apparently they-
retroactively get them to go and shoot that because I need to see it?
Just a
Let's
short
fundraise
track.
Another
a short track.
documentary.
Short track.
Jesus.
So thankfully, the production costs alone put the kibosh on that idea. And that apparently Ronald D. Moore was handed the idea, and that Michael Pilar said, like, "There's a story in here I don't know. Try and find it." And that Ronald D. Moore was the one who came up with the idea that the Enterprise C, coming through this time rift out of the battle, affected their universe in such a way that the Federation was now in a protracted war with the Klingon Empire. The Enterprise D was a much different ship. The bridge effects alone, like
Oh,
seeing
D
so
it, like
stood
the
for darker, by the way.
yeah, and that everybody wearing a sidearm all
I
the
love the
time.
transition right away. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just the makeup on Picard to make him look more like worn.
Yes.
Oh,
Haggard, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not enough sleep, too much responsibility, and it affected everything in that. Did you notice that little interaction between him and Riker in the mission
Oh,
briefing and
The
that?
whole time.
Hmm.
Right? Usually,
the-
usually Riker's somebody he listens to. It's like he wants his opinion on that, and in that case, he just shut him down.
Yeah, it's that, like, it's just that full on wartime captain,
Yeah.
right? It's nothing else matters. Like, I will ask you if I want your opinion. We're at war. This is my ship. We're doing it my way.
Yeah.
Not to say that Riker's still not his confidant, but in that situation, yeah.
Plus-
He was
That
plus-
was
pretty hard on
Star Galactica
him.
vibes, guys. BSG vibes.
Plus, he's probably even more worn down because he knows that the war isn't going their way, right?
No,
Like,
they're
we find
losing
out a lot,
badly.
like,
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, I love that little interaction with him, and that even like his whole temperament even changes when he's talking to Captain Garrett at that moment, and that's
Mhm.
he can tell his voice is shook. The war is going very badly. 6 months, and the like between that and like the Federation collapsing into surrender.
Yep.
Uh,
Real quick, Hawk, before you continue on Twitch, Lexi says, it's one of my favorite episodes, and the emotional anchor of having Tasha back, making it more than just fixing time back. Now it's also the heartache of sacrificing someone that we care about. You know, seeing her back was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah,
And
her
so
coming
now-
back and then sacrificing herself again.
Yeah.
Like, that's
I think it was
rough.
one of my favorite Tasha Yar and Guinan episodes. Because as much as Picard is also like such a central focus in here, it's also like they get to shine in this episode, which they rarely get plots where they really shine.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, those interactions are one of the standouts in the episode, and that. But just quickly to go back to Tasha and that, if we're going back in our conversation and that, when we're talking about cracks in the timeline, even though you fixed it, we see how that works out in a later episode.
because this Tasha going back on the Enterprise C gives birth to Sela, who we end up showing up in the regular timeline. It's like all the causes effect of fucking time getting screwed up.
Here you go again, Julian.
Yep. Yep. I love it.
Stargate explained it, I think, the best. There was an episode where they had, I think it was like a cadet at the Air Force Academy, and it was like, here's cause and here's effect. But in time, you can have the effect that causes the effect, and it's just like a mind-bendy situation, because the thing that hasn't happened yet causes the thing that causes the thing that causes the thing that happens. And it's like,
that's literally what all good things is, though.
Yeah.
The fact that the anomaly is caused by Picard trying to stop the anomaly happening.
Yeah.
Totally.
He's the one that causes it to begin with. Like, I love it.
Yeah, that's some Jeremy
I'm getting
Bearimy
ahead.
shit.
But I will say,
Jeremy Bearimy.
I do really love yesterday's Enterprise. It's such a solid episode. I love that Picard relies so heavily on what Guinan is saying, and everybody, like, in the beginning, I like that it starts that she's talking with Worf, and they're just talking about prune juice, and he's like, "Oh, warrior's drink." Like, it's so fun because she's having one of those like nice interactions with somebody where she's genuinely trying to help them, and he's starting to see a little bit of what she's saying, but not completely. And the fact that she kind of helps Tasha through all this as well, and lets her know, like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, when I look at you, I know that you're supposed to be dead. We're not even ever supposed to have met, and that really sets Tasha up to be like, I know now I have to be on this ship. Like, Picard, please let me go.
Yeah.
And it's such like a heavy emotional episode. But I love the fact that everybody really trusts Guinan's instinct and influence.
Yeah.
That everything gets righted because of that. And even at the end of the episode where she calls up to make sure everything's okay, and Picard's like surprised to hear her. He's like, Guinan, like, yeah, everything's fine up here. And she's like,
Yeah.
okay, good to know. And then she sits down with Geordi.
Like,
it just comes full circle. Like in the episode, because now she's sitting down and helping somebody else again. So like she carries through that whole episode, and I like the depth that's giving to Tasha as well, because she died. She's killed off of the show, and then she comes back and has this whole thing, this whole episode that really focuses on this time she wants her death to actually have meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, Guinan let her know,
she
you
died
do
a
die.
meaningless death.
You died, but
the
it was
acknowledgement
not
of that, right? Like,
Yeah.
they know they fucked up, so they're like, all right, let's try this again.
Denise Crosby was so good this episode. Like, her face
Yeah,
when
really good.
Guinan told her that she died a meaningless death, just like heartbreaking.
It was great acting for everybody in this episode. So good.
Yeah.
And
Took
to
the words right
tell
out of my
someone
mouth.
that, to actually be the person who says, you're not supposed to be here, you're supposed to be dead, that's a pretty intense thing to say to someone.
Yes.
So.
And she didn't have to say it either. It's
Yeah.
the same thing with like anytime you have a character from the future come to talk to somebody from the past, and there's things they can say or can't say. That was something she's not necessarily from the future, but she's the only one that senses that the timeline was being disturbed and changing. She's the only one that's aware that the ship changed everything around her. The fact that she didn't have to say that to Tasha, but she was like, this is what you need to hear, and this is going to set things right. Ooh,
And the
getting
fact
choked
that-
up just think about Whoopi.
The fact that Picard has to make a leap of faith based on her judgment, she can't
Mhm.
give him the facts, but she needs him to trust her.
Even
And
guy
I
that
bet-
knows like temporal displacement and breaking the laws of giving too much information. Yeah.
But like a Picard eventually comes to the conclusion himself, and that when he weighs all the evidence, and that he's like, it's like one ship pulled out of an important battle, and that if a ship had died defending a Klingon colony from a Romulan attack, it could have changed everything. And that he gets there on his own. One more thing I wanted to add in that the interaction between Worf and Gaiden at the beginning, that was apparently supposed to be a very different scene. I can't remember who changed it in that, but apparently Ronald D. Moore had Worf staring out at the stars, and Guinan coming up and saying, every time I look out at them, and that I wonder what we ask of them. And he said, when Klingons look out at the stars, we always ask what the stars ask of us.
I read about this because I remember that line.
Ask not what your
Yes.
country should do for you.
And even after it got changed in that, Michael Pilar apparently took Ronald D. Moore was he was a young writer on the show at that point, and that apparently he took him aside and said, like, I really like that scene, and he said it was wonderful to hear that usually like people's ideas just get cut and they move on and that, but he actually personally pulled him aside and said, that was beautiful.
He's like, instead, here's prune juice. And that's Hollywood, kids. They're like, that's deep, profound. Humanity's not ready for it. Prune juice.
So I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about on it. Anything other standout moments for that, or anything that you guys can think of?
I gotta think.
I love the captain of the Enterprise C. I thought
Captain Garrett.
She was so good, and how she was willing to either stay in that timeline or go back. Like, it was whatever was best for the Federation. Like, she was an A1 captain.
And can't forget about Shooter McGavin.
Yep.
Shooter. Congratulations, murderer.
Pew.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I'm
that was
sorry. I love
interesting.
that.
It's an interesting relationship. You gotta shoot your shot sometimes, and he did.
Okay.
Did I go too Yar? What? Bar? What?
Get off my bridge.
Just shut up!
Encounter at Farpoint? What?
So even though the next episode we're talking about, it deserves pretty much its own episode of a podcast, and I think as a time travel episode, I think we have to mention it, but it was the finale, All Good Things. And it has the show ending where it began, Q putting Picard and humanity on trial once again and debating the right to exist, and giving Picard a much more difficult task than the one that he presented him with at Farpoint. The monkey wrench in this episode, being a proper time travel episode, is the presence and influence of Q. By allowing Picard awareness of his actions in 3 simultaneous points in time, he influences Picard to create the very problem he's meant to fix, the temporal paradox. What are our thoughts on this show, on this episode?
It is
one of the best episodes ever.
So many people love this episode.
This might be the best finale for any TV show ever. Like, this episode is so damn good. The acting is perfect.
Guys, the Good Place had the best ending ever.
That's true. I will agree with that. But this show, like, they did something like you don't really see on sci-fi shows, and they gave everyone the perfect storyline in, like, for each of them. Like, they were equally there. They didn't like shun anyone. It was just like, it was
Tasha
way
even gets a moment.
Yeah, it was way better than Generations, or like those movies always, like that movie focused on like 3 people of the crew.
Mm-hmm.
Like any of the Star Trek Next Generation movies afterwards, they didn't do Beverly or any of the secondary characters justice like they did in this episode.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
It felt like it had room to breathe too. It didn't feel like, I know we're gonna get to Endgame, but to me, like, they didn't give that enough time to breathe. But this, like, you felt the moment, and there was like quiet time, and I don't know, it had the right pacing and the right amount of time to tell the story.
I'm just gonna piggyback right off what Eric said. It is my favorite finale of a television series of all time. Nothing has been able to top it. It is that damn good. It is. I think I've said this on previous podcast episodes of this show. It is a masterclass on how television finales should be handled. Like Eric said, it wraps everything up. The ending doesn't leave you. I mean, maybe you want movies, but it doesn't leave you like that. Oh my God, I want more. I want more. It's just this beautiful, perfect ending. And how many fucking cool moments do you get? You get, hold on a second. Where's my baby here? Hold on. Hold on. Here she is. You get one of the best Starfleet comm badges ever designed in that. It's so awesome. You get the Enterprise D in all of her 3 nacelle glory, just tearing apart Klingon
Julian, don't you have
warships.
that ship?
I do. I'll grab it while someone else is talking, and I'll have it wave by. But this is so good, and the way it handles time travel, because it's not necessarily time travel either, right? It's just Q fucking with shit, and because he can move around in time as he pleases. We do need to do a whole episode on this eventually. It is just
And
so
he
good.
comes in pretty late too. Like when I was rewatching it, I was surprised how long it went on before Q kind of shows up. And I think that's part of what makes the episode special too, because at that point we're like, all right, but there's some shit happening. But you spend a lot of time going like, what the fuck is happening? But in a good way. And it's like a well put together story, guys.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool two-parter. It's
Julian
one of the
showing
best
his ship.
finales of a show I've ever seen.
The laser.
You're right.
He's
Who
got
got you
sharks
that,
with laser
Julian? Who
beams on
got
it.
you that?
Brittany, so quick sidebar story. Brittany one day was like, I'm bringing you over a box of Star Trek shit from Wade's. And in this box of Star Trek shit was the All Good Things Enterprise D, the Enterprise D that you now see up there, and Voyager that you now see up there. So
what a haul.
Damn.
I got it. I think I paid Brittany $20 for all that, because it was just like, or no, you bought it for me.
I did buy it.
You said I don't give me any money because
literally
I
said,
paid $20.
Don't give me money.
And now I have things that I got
it from people
got
that-
lost a long time ago, and it's one of the coolest moments that anybody has ever done for me, because it's a deep emotional story about a lot of my ships getting lost a long time ago, and now I have a lot of them back. And
I saw them.
Been a
'cause
long road.
My friend and his fiance moved, and they were downsizing their Star Trek collection. He gives things to me because he knows I like Star Trek, and also we have this podcast. So he's like, I don't care if you do it as a giveaway or you keep it yourself. So I saw the ships, and he's like, do you need these, or can I sell them at the store? And I was like, oh, I know somebody who needs these. And immediately, I literally called him on the way home from work, and I was like, I have to run to D&D soon, but like, come
Get
outside,
over
I have
here.
a box for you.
That's amazing.
Get over here.
And now you're
so yeah.
helping me. So
I like to help people.
I know. Awesome.
I'm just like, you have something that you want more than I do, and I haven't.
wait,
You can
what
have
did you
it.
get, Eric?
So when I was in university, I had a long box of comics I was collecting during university, and someone stole it from me. So that was like a couple hundred
I had the
comics.
same exact thing happened to me in high school.
But it had the original run of Civil War, the original run of
wow.
Neil Gaiman's run Eternals, which is my favorite comic run. And I was telling Brittany this. She's like, "Wait a minute, I have these." I was like, "God
I
damn."
was like, is it this cover? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, a set of 7? He's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I bought that a year ago from Wade's. You want it?
I was like, I'm trying. Don't cry. Don't cry. She can't see. It's over Messenger.
Yeah. Like, I got it because it
So
was cool.
amazing.
And I'm like, Neil Gaiman's neat, but I'm too busy. It's been 2 years and I haven't read it still. So I'm like, Eric needs these, though. I don't need them.
I do
Aw.
need those. Thank you very
No.
much.
Sidebar back. I think I was about to talk about this episode now.
Yes.
Speaking of all good things, not just Brittany. I feel weird saying that. Anyway, I thought this was an amazing 2-part episode. Definitely one of the best series finales I've ever seen. I feel like I cried watching like half of these episodes anyway, but the transitions were awesome between the timeline we saw at the beginning and then everything shifting. The bridge got darker, everybody's outfits were slightly more militaristic, like Picard looks so worn. Everything seems so believable that like you felt the shift into this other sort of timeline. The fact that once again it was Q putting humanity on trial, so it's like bookends to the series where it starts out the same way. Q has been one of those people that shows up to like just kind of poke at Picard and be really annoying. Like other captains will kind of be like, go away, Q, and he does. But with Picard, it's different. So the fact that he hangs the fact
because
that
they're secretly best friends.
right, one can't live without the other. What was I gonna say? Oh, my brain just stopped. Oh, the fact that Picard is going to be like the reason that humanity is annihilated, and he's setting him up for all these things. But the way that they did that first episode, where so much of that time, as you guys said, was there without Q actually appearing, and you're like, what is going on? Like, it's a weird time episode. It seems like Picard is traveling throughout time, and he's so frustrated in the beginning, and it grows so well because you're feeling frustrated as he is, because he's trying to figure out, why is this happening? Now I'm suddenly in this timeline. People don't understand that I'm skipping. You find out he has this neurological disease that's happening, and it's so much that's compounded. And then when Q finally reveals, like, oh, this is a trial, and then shows him that you're causing this, he starts to finally work with himself and work with his surroundings, so that every time he like skips around, he's less frustrated. He works with himself and others. I mean, he's mad at Riker because he doesn't listen to him.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But it's like really cool to see just the acting across the board. Everything's so believable. The future versions of these characters was so awesome to see. Voyager kind of did the same thing with like Janeway and Harry Kim and a few other people. But it's so cool because you're like, this could have been a timeline that happened. Like, this could have been a thing. But, oh, I love the fact that he causes the thing that he's trying to solve.
Yeah.
Because it's all Q, baby. It's all Q. So,
I love that
thumbs up for me.
Q says the trial never ends. Like, it was always
Yes.
Picard's purpose to prove that humanity was worth being, there. And the fact that they used that in the teaser for Picard season 2 makes me so much more excited about season 2 than I was of season 1. If they can capture this, this relationship again, that Q and Picard, and the importance that Q placed on on humanity, and how the morality of Picard was such a, morality and his ingenuity, I guess, like proved how important we were. I don't know.
I'm gonna go out on a limb just from Patrick Stewart's reaction during Star Trek Day or First Contact Day, when John Delancey showed up on the Zoom chat from his boat, and Patrick Stewart just lost his mind. That chemistry is gonna be right back where it
for sure
left off. Yeah.
And I love that they used that line in the trailer, because going and watching this episode now after having that trailer reveal also gives the finale even more weight, because you hear him say, like, the trial never ends. You know he's going to appear in Picard season 2, and he tells Picard that he's not just meant to explore space and do all these things, he's also growing humanity. Like, his purpose is different, to figure out, like, existence for humans. So he's like, Picard, you need to do this. The Federation needs to explore space, but he gives him, like, he almost tasks him with this thing that he's going to continue to do. So as much as the finale ends everything where you don't need more, you're also like, but what did Q mean? Now we're seeing that.
Yeah. I think maybe next month we'll do a new series, since we're going to be ending our
Put it on the list.
Kelvin timeline series this month. We'll start the finale series and go through all the Trek finales, good and bad. So
Enterprise.
we'll do that. Yeah. Hawk, anything else on All Good Things?
Brittany brought up the point I wanted to make next. It seems to be a recurring theme in any time travel episode in that, but it's the idea of the Cassandra complex.
Yes.
Comes from Greek mythology. If you want Spotted Giraffe, can give you a much better detail of it than I can. But it's basically when you have foreknowledge of the future, but no agency in which to change things, or little to no agency in which to change things. And that's one of the things this episode handled brilliantly, and that was Picard in 3 different points in his life, and the relationship he had with the crew, and needing them to understand what he was doing and why he wanted to do this, but approaching it from 3 different perspectives, and that, like, first off, in the past, when he first took possession of the Enterprise, he, the crew knew him by reputation and that, but then he started, breaking mission and that, and telling them, we're going here to do something. I just need you to do it and trust me in that. He handles it better in his present time in that, because by that time, everybody, they were family. They trusted him, and they knew.
Well, or about in the present or in the deep future?
Like in his presence, right, for that episode, okay. And that, yes. 7 years in with the Enterprise crew.
Because I think some of the best moments of this episode are in the deep future, where people are having a hard time believing, and like Beverly goes out on a limb, but Will's like, "You pathetic old man." Those are some great acting on Patrick Stewart, but just also as Eric said earlier, like just the ensemble of this cast getting moments and doing so well.
Sure. And like little also interactions between other characters that were possibly going to prevent them from like helping him to stop what was happening in that, like Worf and Riker, and like the bitterness that existed between them at this point in their lives, all around.
Hawk, I love that you brought up Cassandra, because that's one of my favorite tropes or like metaphors that's used in anything. Like 12 Monkeys is an incredible film because they reference Cassandra so early on, and you have this main character that's trying to tell them what's happening, and people don't want to believe him because he's from the future. So Cassandra, before I'm sure Giraffe will get on it, and she knows way more than me, was a priestess of Apollo who basically was cursed so that way she would always prophesize the truth, but nobody would ever believe her. So that is the curse. Like, you could tell the truth all you want, but the people around you won't believe you. It's used so much in everything. Even The Last of Us Part 2 had a theater that you're in. There's a poster for a play of Cassandra. Like, there's so much tied in. It's referenced in a lot of cases where there's like time happening, or somebody from the future is trying to warn you about something, but you don't believe them. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That's something I wanted to say, but I forgot it.
No problem. It's an interesting story in that it's because originally her foreknowledge was a gift from Apollo. Apollo fell in love with Cassandra in that and gave her this gift, but she rejected him in that. And, so he said, instead of taking the gift away in that, he just decided to curse her instead. And it's like, you can keep this power I gave you in that, but I'm also going to make it so that no one else will ever believe you.
Yep. It's very frustrating.
It is.
It's also being a woman on the internet type effect. Man.
Anything else on All Good Things?
I'd love to. I'd save a deeper analysis of this.
Let's
for
do it.
A
We'll
further
do it
episode.
Soon. Handing the con over to you, Ensign Brittany, for one of your favorite episodes of Star Trek as we move to Deep Space Nine.
I can't wait. So one thing Deep Space Nine always did really well was tackle current events and real world issues. Whether or not people wanted Star Trek to be, quote, darker, that's what it did. So the events of past tense are nothing different, really. It basically takes place in 2024, which is coming up, guys. Not too far off from what we're seeing in 2021 still. Literally today, I saw somebody tweeted about a homeless situation that's happening and our government's response to said homeless situation, and I literally quote tweeted it and said, yep, so the past tense episode of Deep Space Nine just keeps getting more and more fact than fiction. This is where we're at.
Which is crazy, right? It's absolutely
It's
insane
scary,
how realistic to where we are in time right now.
Well, they predicted that people are terrible, and that's not a that's an easy prediction, sadly.
History is often cyclical. I mean, look, we have a pandemic that happened 100 years after another terrible pandemic. People wouldn't wear masks then. They're not wearing masks now. Womp womp. You have, I mean, look, TOS, they went to the 30s. Great Depression. People were lining up in soup kitchens just to get food, whatever. We have tons of people that don't have jobs due to the pandemic still. People that are also leaving jobs because they're already not getting paid well, and they're like, you know what? F it. So, yeah, homelessness has been an issue. It's continuing, and just like they say in this episode, the social issues that the U.S. is dealing with, they're not handling correctly. And I know that when Bashir and Sisko show up, initially, like, they're so taken aback from, they realize what time period they're in and what's going on, but they also say, like, how over hundreds of years has, the U.S. allowed it to get to this point, or has the world allowed it to get to this point? How did they ever let it get so bad? Is a line in this episode that gets me every time. Like, this is arguably the episode that made me love Star Trek. Because I watched Deep Space Nine, I already liked a lot of the episodes in it, but this was the first one that I have a very vivid memory of. As I was watching it, I started crying. And I was like, holy shit, this is what...
Uh-oh.
She was so passionate, her microphone just exploded.
She mic dropped early.
Yeah, it was weird. I'll repeat it again. So I was like, holy shit, this is what a sci-fi show was talking about in the 90s. And that just shows that this is something that continues to be an issue. Something that was talked about 30 years ago now, almost. I don't know exactly when this episode was. And they were talking about 2024, which seems such a far-flung future, but then here we are, and we're still dealing with it. And it's going to continue to happen until people care, which is something they talk about in this episode. So I want to open it up to you guys and see what you like about this episode, what you think, and I'll add more, because there's a lot.
I didn't watch this one only because we're doing the watch of DS9 and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
That's fine. You can skip.
And now I'm interested though.
It's very good.
This episode was kind of hard to watch today after not having watched it for a few years, just because of the current political climate and everything that Brittany just said. We're seeing this in America right now. We're seeing it in Europe right now. Karen and I drove by it. I think a day after the situation got worse, as we were crossing from Belgium into France, the tented cities, when we were on vacation, and just that situation got crazy. I think like I just said, like a day after, and we're seeing that now, and we saw it in this episode, and it's just it's so well done, and it's again just it's great acting by Avery Brooks, who ends up taking the role of Gabriel Bell after he gets killed, and it's I don't know what else to say about it, just because Brittany, you just said everything just so perfectly.
If you want, I could do the episode vaguely, the episode summary. If that helps.
No, it's okay. I can't really say much more than you just said, because it's just so well done, and you kind of hit it on the head. But it's probably up there in the top Trek episodes pantheon. It's amazing.
It's like scary. Star Trek does a lot of social critique, and this is like to the level where you're like, it's scary how accurate this still is, and it's sad that it's still this accurate.
Yeah. So this episode aired on January 2nd, 1995. And I remember seeing this and being like, oh, 2024 is so far away, and it's not gonna be like that. Like we should learn from this, right? It's gonna be like regular Star Trek. We're gonna be all bright and happy, and now look at where we are. Like it's crazy to think of.
Yep.
To think
about that. At the fucking very least, at least we're all starting to pay attention, and there's baby steps. So it sucks. I'm just glad it's not the same as it was, then. It's not that far off, but like we're not putting our hands or our faces in the sand.
You'll watch the episode and you'll know.
Yeah, because that's debatable.
The whole point of the episode is that the government needs to realize and actually start to care about these people. Until there is the care about these people, nothing will change. Like that's a whole point, and like it's a whole. Whew.
Guys, let's tear down the government. I'm here for it. Let's do that. Let's go do that right now.
This podcast is parody, by the way.
You're right.
There's a line in the episode in that the enormity of this situation, and that's what makes people throw their hands up and say, like, I don't know what to do.
I love even just from a production wise stance, like the dichotomy between the poor class and then the rich class was so drastic that it just drove that point home even more to show that, like, look at these people, they're in rags, and then look at all these people in hoity-toity like costumes.
And the rich people are so dismissive of the situation and the other thing is the people that are in these sanctuary districts, they're not even necessarily poor. They're people that lost their jobs due to the factory changing its equipment. There are people that literally
which is literally happening right now.
Yeah. Did you notice that when they first showed like the upper class, like at the party, they were also higher up in buildings?
Oh,
yes,
like that was such a good.
I
love that.
The people
Speaking of everything that you two are saying right now, Lexi brought up a really great point. Look at Caitlyn Jenner just recently as she's running for California governor because they're doing the recount or the whatever the fuck they call it, complaining about her rich friend packing up the plane hangar and leaving California because they hate seeing homeless folk. I mean, how fucking blind do you have to be?
It's
what?
You guys.
Yeah, that's how it matches the episode.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
The California drama, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Well, I was just saying that that's why Twitter literally today, after I rewatched this episode, people were tweeting about like how homelessness is on the rise and there's all these different issues, and I'm like, DS9. So yeah, they have basically in this episode there's a like a transporter error that happens, like there's a temporal distortion. They're supposed to beam down to San Francisco to attend like a Starfleet, like a formal sort of event. But Jadzia, Sisko, and Bashir basically they show up in San Francisco, but they show up in 2024, and they're all knocked out when they first kind of land. And Sisko and Bashir are taken to like the sanctuary district where they take people that don't have IDs and they think they're like low lifes or DIMS as they call it, which are people that they think are below being able to be workers or functioning society. A lot of people have like mental illnesses or physical disabilities, something that doesn't allow them to quote contribute. So they're taken there. Jadzia is found by this dude who literally owns like the most important company in the area. He helps her out, gets her IDs really quickly, like pulls all these strings. And so she experiences everything from like the rich realm. And there's this dichotomy in the episode where you see Sisko and Bashir actually dealing with what's happening. So that's that really cool dichotomy we see. But what I really like is you see them, Bashir and Sisko, like they just to get ID or any sort of information they need to continue to survive in the sanctuary area that they can't leave. It's completely walled up. They have to go through all these hoops. This lady that's even trying to help them out straight up says like, oh, well, you know how the economy is these days. This is why the government can't help you. I would love to, but like I don't have this power. And Jadzia, even when she learns that they're actually here and she talks about the situation with the rich people, she tries to call it to their attention like, this is messed up. If all this area is to take care of these people who need help, why is there a wall around it? Like she calls these things out. There's so many amazing quotes and lines about this episode. So
yeah, and how they're kind of willfully ignorant of the situation.
Yeah,
and that's,
exactly.
It's not as bad as it's made out to be.
Yeah.
I love that Bashir, like the first 3 seasons, he's a little bit annoying, right? But him being the eyes of empathy, the one who wanted to help everyone, being the doctor, and being sort of the audience at that time was such a good sort of pathway for him to become where he was later in the show. Like this is the first time I remember him not being annoying. And
yeah,
exactly.
He was really good in this. Yeah.
Overall, it's a good episode for both of them. And I just say watch it because it's all about revolting against oppressive regimes and fighting for rights. Any last thoughts on this specific episode or any ideas, Hawk?
Hawk went to take the dogs to pee.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see.
I was like, cute.
I wanted to make sure I didn't cut him off. I just get very passionate about this episode. Like I get very emotional when I talk about it. Of course, another episode we had for Deep Space Nine was Trials and Tribulations, which we did a table read on a few months back. And, this is just one of those classic episodes where the crew goes back in time, but they actually entered an episode of the original series, which is really fun, really different. And it's just more of like a goofy episode, but it involves the temporal agents at least being like, this is ridiculous.
Jim Kirk's an asshole. Yeah.
So it's a fun one. I suggest watching our table read if
that was
you
so
enjoyed
fun.
to see it. But if you guys have any thoughts about the episode, you can give specifics here. I think we've covered it so recently that I'm not really sure we have to discuss it too much.
Just classic fun.
Nope. We're good.
It's the lighthearted one to this more serious one I just talked about.
Yeah.
It's like if you want to laugh about time travel, watch Trials and Tribulations.
Yeah. Let's hand the con over to Ensign Aaron for some Star Trek Voyager timey-whimey bullshit.
Whoop whoop.
Listen, I think Voyager has some of the best time travel episodes in all of Star Trek, and because there's so many of them, right?
So many.
Yeah, but we're going to talk about only a couple of them. Timeless, which is one of my favorites. And just getting right into it. We have Harry and Chakotay who have gone back in time, and you don't know that right at the start, but the ship is under ice, and it turns out they, tried to go figure out how to get through a wormhole, get to Earth, and it didn't work, and everybody died except for the two of them. And so they've spent the last, I think it's like 10 something years. It might have been longer than that.
15 years from what I remember. Yeah.
And it's this whole story where we see the two of them and they look a little bit older, and they've got like Chakotay's girlfriend, which was weird. And they boot up the doctor, and it's all about sort of sending information back in time so to 7 so that they can collapse this wormhole and everybody can survive. And it's cool because we see a sequence more than once that doesn't work, and then they go back and you see the sequence again. This is one of my top like 5 Star Trek episodes. I think it's really well paced. I think this is a great episode for Harry Kim. I think he is really good in it. Like, you see this older version of him and he's kind of tortured. I think he like suffers really well. I think they might have said that on their pod.
He
but
does.
Yeah, he does. Every
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, and just when he tells the doctor he's like they're having sex, I was like, damn, Harry, you're blowing people up. But did you guys like this episode? What do you think about it?
It's a
I
top
think-
track episode.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Timeless is definitely one of the best Harry Kim episodes because you really see like how important he is to the ship. Other than like, I mean, he's done lots of other amazing things, but he goes all out to fix what it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode is go ahead, Og.
Oh, I loved how they kind of introduced like the idea that Starfleet is stepping in, like when people are trying to,
Do
affect-
shit. Jordy, I didn't even mention that. Great fucking LeVar Burton cameo.
Yeah. The fact that Starfleet is actively stepping in when people are trying to change the timeline and that, now it's like, okay, you're under arrest.
Yeah.
I love it. That continued on. Harry Kim actually ends up playing a similar role in the end of
Endgame.
Voyager.
Yeah, he does.
Mhm.
Really good.
This episode is a big deal. One, it is, Aaron, one of the best episodes of Trek and definitely Voyager. It's a big deal because Endgame does the same exact thing. Both Timeless and Endgame changed the prime timeline. Like, everybody's always talking about, oh, well, the prime timeline and the prime time. Like, if you want to talk about like shit ruining the actual prime timeline, Voyager crashed. That is its original fate. Like, period,
Yep.
end of story. That
And
is
Harry
what
was like,
happens to
"No."
Voyager. And oh shit, sorry for the reflection, Jesus. And Endgame, like, they don't get back for another like 15 years or so.
Mhm.
That is their fate. But nah, Admiral Janeway's like, no, I'm gonna go and change the past because people die. And I like that. I like that out of all of these shows, Voyager fucks around with time the most and actually makes significant and major changes to the timeline that, for better or worse, can't be, or I guess, can be if you really wanted to, but can't really be remedied.
I feel like they just didn't want to send temporal agents to the Delta Quadrant. They're like, it's too far out of our way. Let Voyager
Well-
do their own shit. You know what I mean? Or they're
And
like,
what
oh, there's
would have been
Borg there.
different? Like, I think the reason that they always go back in time, like for Chakotay and Harry, it's because they care about the people who they lost, and they're against Starfleet. They're willing to do whatever it takes to bring them back, and it's the same in Endgame, like you say. I mean, I think that if you're I mean, it's a selfish reason, but at the same time, I think it's a reason that we can all get behind.
I think it's like what Janeway says in Endgame. It's selfish and selfless at the same time. Because
Yeah.
that's so much of what Voyager is, and it's easily become one of my favorite Star Trek series. And like, it really fights with DS9 sometimes. I'm like, calm down. But the fact that this crew, like, they are a family. I know that all Star Trek crews really are a family, but like this one, it hits different. Like, the fact that they even, I don't want to get into Endgame. I'll stop. But like, the fact that they're willing to go through these scenarios because of how much they love each other as a family. It's not even just as like, we are colleagues, we are Starfleet officers, like we would live and die for each other because this is what we do to explore. But
Yeah, well,
it just hits different. The minute somebody dies and they're like, there's a temporal what? I can go and fix this, and they're like, gonna save my friend's life, and you're like, ugh.
I feel like
Gonna
they're
take
more
all
of a
of that.
family because of the circumstance they're placed,
Exactly.
right? Like they
Mhm.
had to grow more tight because of, if they didn't, they wouldn't make it back. Like,
Yep.
you can't build that bond if
That's
you
why
know.
it's called Voyager.
Because
Yeah.
DS9, they're
The Voyage.
close because they're in a situation that's difficult. It's wartime, but it's different, right? Like Voyager there's a familiarity. They there's no going on vacation
Yeah.
back to Earth or anything like that. Like they're eating ration replicator stuff. They have to deal with Neelix's bullshit.
They're like, I eat things grown from poop.
Yeah, but also like
Apples.
this
And
ship.
we've all had our fair share of Leela Root stew, god damn it.
That's right, Leo the Root.
Once you eat Neelix's cooking, you're all connected for life.
I think also this ship, I think they deserve that little bit of selfishness because they've been selfless. Like they went to the Delta Quadrant to destroy this thing because otherwise other people were going to get stuck. Like it was going to, instead of, like they've been selfless so many times, like even in Endgame, they're like, we got to blow this shit up, man. We have to. Like,
or they
it's
point
the
out to
right
Janeway,
thing to
you
do.
continue to be selfless, and it keeps putting your crew back. How many episodes has she said this will set us back 6 months or this will set us back 3 years? But we're okay with it. Like,
but it's the right, it's the right thing to do. So in these instances where everybody dies, they're like, you know what? We fucking have done all of that. Time, like we're bringing them back. We're bringing them back. But yeah. Anyways, what do you guys have anything else to say about this one? I want to keep moving here.
How is this any different from Kirk not believing in a no-win scenario? Like
It's not.
it's Harry Kim's Kirk moment.
Yeah, exactly. That they have this technology and that they know they can, that there's a possibility that it might work, and they're going to go for it. Because like this
still
is
breaks like every temporal prime directive law.
I mean, if it didn't work, it's fine.
That's why he was still an ensign.
Yeah.
No, we actually did get to see in Endgame Captain Harry Kim.
Harry Kim.
Nice.
But now they got back earlier, so does he ever become a captain?
Yeah. Oh shit.
It haunts me to this day, and I only watched it this morning. I'm like, Harry!
Oh man. Okay, guys, I'm gonna move on to relativity. I don't think we need to talk too much about this one unless you guys have a lot to say, but I mean, it's a cool episode. We have like Seven going back in time a couple of times. Captain Braxton's back from Future's End.
And he's
which I
a
thought
fucking
was-
psycho.
Braxton's
Yeah.
back. All right.
Well, it's a nice, like, in a show that doesn't always, like, talk about, oh, you guys remember what happened last week? That shit was crazy. They don't always do that. But in this one, we see Captain Braxton again, and, that was, like, in season 3. So, I like that they brought that whole thing back. It's a whole time travel thing. We got to see Voyager before it left, which was cool. It was kind of like a check-in on moments. I love seeing Seven in a uniform, and the fact that they didn't continue to put her in a uniform after this makes
That was
me
weird.
but it's like, oh yeah, you look like a reasonable person. Great. Let's keep that. Anyway,
The fact that
I
they
really
didn't
liked
put
it.
her in a uniform for the rest of the show is a tragedy.
That's because they were them off corset.
My favorite,
like
my
that one.
favorite moment in this episode is the like getting to see Voyager at in dry dock and like getting ready to go
Yes.
and talking about the ship, and then all of a sudden like Janeway's like, oh, temporal disturbances, and oh, I don't believe you, and oh man, and Seven dying, and like, oh, we have to get another Seven from the future or the past or whatever.
Let's go grab another 7 from the closet.
Yeah, I love it. This is a fun
I wish
episode.
they would have stuck Kess in this episode. I think that would have been a good place for her to come back. Because
Eh.
the one time
Eh.
they bring Kess back, they don't. No, God, it's not a good episode.
Oh, it's like
It's
a
not-
weird episode when she comes back. Yeah, you're right.
Well, I think
But-
it could be a Tasha Yar situation. Like they didn't utilize her character very well, but if you can bring her back and make it a good episode, I think it would have been a good opportunity to do something with that character, or just have a moment that doesn't suck. But
It's anyone's Kess.
There you go.
I love Relativity. It's a great 7 episode, and I mean, it's kind of like a time loop, but she keeps trying to go back and stop the bomb from ever being set off, and the fact that she's like literally trying to stop this dude from doing it, like, it's so cool because she can't tell the crew that she's traveling back in time, but like she still looks like part of the crew. Oh, it's so cool. I really enjoyed that episode when I saw it happening, and I was just like, more of this, please. Yes. She would be a really good secret agent. So good.
totally.
Yeah. That's my thoughts.
Anybody else?
I actually didn't get around to watching this one. I don't actually think I've ever seen this one.
It's
You
so
should
good.
go back and watch it. It's good.
It's
I
great.
think
If
I
you
might go
love
watch it
7,
tonight.
If you love 7, it's a top tier 7 episode.
There you go.
That doesn't
Top
involve
7
Borg for
episode.
once. The rare
Yeah,
one that
that's
doesn't involve
true.
the Borg.
Well, we're going to talk about one that does involve the Borg. We've got Endgame, which is the finale for Star Trek Voyager. And I mean, I like it. I mean, considering all the finales of shows I've watched since then, like much better than Game of Thrones, I'm just saying.
It is the second
Everything
best
is.
Star
That's a-
Trek series finale.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wish they would have given it another half hour to let it breathe a little bit because it's breakneck speed.
It
But
is.
I do really like it. I mean, I assume people have watched it, but basically we start, and the actual opening line of it I thought was really good. So I'm going to read that to you guys real quick. In the year 2404, the Federation is celebrating the 10th anniversary of Voyager's return to Earth from 23 years in the Delta Quadrant. And it really starts off that way. You get to see like the ship, and it's over San Francisco, and fireworks and shit,
Everybody's
which
cheering.
is yeah. I kind of feel like in a fun way they put the end of the movie at the start, just seeing Voyager come in like that. And we find out almost everybody's alive. We get to see everybody in their old ass makeup. They made Tom Paris look like shit, guys. Oh my
They
god.
really did. They really
Yeah,
was
no,
did.
that
I was gonna say
about?
the one thing that got me was like the makeup. Like, I mean, you could argue with TNG some of the makeup was like, ooh, too, but like
Oh, it was so over
Tom
the
looked
top.
bad. It was
It
like,
looked real bad.
you're all very young. Let's make you look real old. And I was like,
Yeah, and it's
And the-
funny because you look at those actors now and they
Yeah.
don't look like
No,
that.
the
I was
only
like,
good
Harry Kim should not have looked that old.
no, the
Yeah.
only good makeup was Janeway's makeup. Like that.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Touch
And
of gray.
Yeah, it was interesting to see who they all were, and we got to see Naomi's daughter, which was cool, and Tom and Balana's daughter.
And
So
some
I like
Paris.
those. Yeah, I like those moments. And it was a crazy story. It was like we're gonna go into the Borg crazy zone. I forget what it was. It was-
Unimatrix Zero.
Yes,
Unimatrix Zero.
thank you. And we're gonna bust in there. We're gonna take one of those nice water slides all the way home, and they do it inside the cube, and then bust out of it in
Sphere.
the coolest way possible,
It's a
right into all the
sphere.
ships.
Sphere.
Yes,
Sorry.
Julian.
Sorry. Nothing. It was a sphere.
He must be Borg. He's so focused.
I'm sorry. I fucking love this episode. So like
You're right, it was a
every
sphere, you're
detail,
right.
I've seen it
No.
over and over and
But
over.
it was
Oh,
so good, and I just recently rewatching. I was like, this shit holds up. Julian,
It
tell
does.
us about it. You have feelings.
Digirob said that it's the Trans Warp Hub. The Unimatrix Zero was the previous season finale.
Oh, whatever.
whatever. They had their own. No, but I thought they said Unimatrix Zero like
I think
3
they did
times.
too.
In that
No,
episode.
it's zero
Yeah.
Oh, they-
zero one.
No, 001 is Earth.
Oh, no, wait.
Anyway, yeah, it was the
We'll
Trans
fight
Warp
about this
Hub.
later, guys. Let's
It
keep
was a
going.
Trans Warp
Oh
Hub.
my God,
That's
we're
the whole
so-
point.
yeah.
because
It
I
was
gotta
when
blow
the
it up.
Borg Queen was talking to Seven and that, and she's an adjunct to Unimatrix Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anyway,
that makes sense.
anyway, I love this episode. I love that old ass Janeway is like, I'm gonna figure out a way to make this shit work. She steals shit from the Klingons. She gives Voyager a blade of armor. She goes up against the Borg Queen. We get to see Alice Krieg back in the role.
Yes.
Good.
This is just so good. It's I love it. I love it. I love it. So
Pull
good.
out my
And
notes.
Barkley, freaking Reg.
Barkley. He's like, I'm adopted.
So
I
The
loved
two
it.
Vok moments, though,
Oh my god. Just,
right?
Tim Russ just acts the hell out of everything, but it's nice to kind of see a little bit of range from him, and you've learned these things. I mean, the one part of the story though that I feel like we could have cut out was Chakotay 7, right?
Ugh.
We all agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have words. I haven't finished
Tell us.
season 6, so I haven't seen any of season 7. But oh my god, every time they went to like interact with each other, I went, ew, no, get away. What? Get away from 7. What the
They
fuck?
have
We
no
all thought that-
chemistry.
The thing
We-
is, she gave no
So
vibes
dumb.
throughout the whole series that she was even interested in him so far. And
Right.
I'm literally almost at the end of season 6. So I'm like, seeing this finale,
Yeah.
I was like, this makes my brain hurt. I was like, this does not
It
compute.
made all of
I
ours
feel like
hurt too.
Tuvok. I'm having a fucking breakdown right now. Like,
Even the fact that she went and had a procedure done,
Yeah.
to get them closer together. It's like, come on.
I hope we hear something about this in Picard season 2, where she was like, nah, I
that was
remember I
me
thought
trying to
about that,
experience
but
human
then
love. It was
just
wrong.
nah.
But I mean, a lot of lesbians have that experience, so it's okay.
It's true.
It's okay. Seven.
Because
should figure in
Rob,
some things
the,
out.
the plot shields were fucking awesome and they made Voyager look cool. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
I
Um,
love this episode.
What do you guys think of all the like cool, like a blade of armor and the transphasic torpedoes or whatever the
It
fuck?
was all awesome. It was all amazing. I
I
loved
loved all of it. I loved the Admiral Janeway and Captain Janeway interactions.
Oh,
I thought
so
they were
good.
Yeah.
amazing. I also loved older Harry Kim and her trying to talk because he's like, "Don't do this. You can't go back," and she's like, I gotta make sure people get back earlier." It was all so good. And then old Janeway and the Borg Queen scenes were so good
Yes.
because you're like, "Oh, Janeway too smart for you," but also she got injected, so like, what's up with that? And then she goes to beam out, and then she's like, "Haha, you're right at my doorstep." Boop, pulls her back in, and then you're like, "Oh shit!" And then she's like, "Assimilate," and then you're like, "Eh." And then you're like, "It's a trap, though. Janeway's too smart to be assimilated without blowing you the fuck up." So seeing her arms slowly fall off and her legs and stuff, and she's just like, "Eh." Talk about breakneck. Pretty sure her neck broke when she hit the floor. But Alice
Oh.
Creed, I love her already. So nice to see her. I was like, yes, Borg Queen. And the way that they escape, they blow it up on the way out, and then they go out, and then you think, oh no, where's Voyager? Do they really go back to the Delta Quadrant? Whatever. I know they're not going to. But still, you see the sphere come out, and then you're like, I hope they hid in the hole, and then they're like, donut! And you're like, yes! And just the Federation.
And it flies in there, man.
I cried the majority of these episodes, mind you. I was not screaming like this. I was just sitting there silently like...
This is the best
fact that-
episode synopsis I've ever heard.
Ever heard.
Just sitting out there, and you're just like, yeah, because they flew out of the hole, and they're just like, holy shit. And she's like, it'll be in my report. There better be coffee in this nebula. And I'm just like, Jane fucking White.
I love how offended Janeway is by future Janeway saying that she switched over to tea, and Janeway's like, I'm a coffee drinker.
Exactly. She's like, you're not really. I know what the doctor said, but I don't believe it. I can't believe I become so cynical. And I'm like, go off, Janeway.
Someone needs to
And we-
clip
I'm not
all of
cynical,
these.
I'm a pragmatic.
And we all know how important coffee is to Janeway, and that how that becomes a metaphor for the change she experiences after getting home.
That's funny.
Bro, I cried.
Dude, yeah, I mean, Brittany, you said it best, but like just that when they're back there and that swoop in, I'm just like, ah, I'm sorry, just snapped
I
my
love how
mind.
immediately they know who they are too. They're just like, holy shit, it's Voyager. And you're like, back with a bang, literally, we blew that
And-
shit up.
Like all the other series they kind of
Backstreet
end.
back again.
And even like I love TNG's ending. That's definitely the best one. But like these guys have been on this journey, and like Tom Paris and B'Elanna just had a baby, inside a Borg fucking cube. And
Baby
and
on
it's ju-
board.
there you go. And just like they went from one, being on their journey to just being home. And I feel like I kind of wanted a little more, like I wanted them to do more of that swooping into Earth thing that we saw at the beginning. Because,
Yeah.
she's like, head for home. And I'm just like, but I want to see them getting off the ship. Like, that's, just feelings, guys. Feelings.
When the crew is all circling around and she asks them, like, I'm not going to make the decision unless we all agree. And then Harry gives his speech. I'm like, go fucking Harry. He wanted to get home the most. My boy knew. But he was just like, we're a family. And he was just like, it's not about the destination. It's about the voyage. And I was like,
To the journey.
bro. Yep. And I was like, it's called Voyager because the true voyage is the friends we made along the way. Anyway, 10 out of 10.
Indeed.
I'm crying right now as I'm thinking about it.
10 out of 10 Borg queens. Anybody got anything else, or are we gonna wrap this one up with that? Because if we're gonna do a whole endings thing, I think we're good.
You're right.
Yeah.
I can
No,
ramble.
that's good. Let's move on. We're gonna try and get through this really quickly because we are way over time tonight. As I mean, this episode's about
I
time.
mean, we
so
did
of
like
course
2 or
we're
3 episodes per
over
show.
time. Yeah, maybe not
was
so
bound to
much next
happen.
time. It was indeed, but it is time for our subspace poll and mailbag.
Hailing frequencies are open.
So we asked our good friends and followers and listeners on Twitter, time travel and Star Trek go hand in hand with each other. So here's the question: which era of Trek has handled the subject the best? And this was not a close vote. TOS got 8% of the vote. The TNG, DS9, Voyager, and I put Enterprise in there because it was all that like 90s, 2000s era Trek. One was 62% of the vote. Discovery got 21%, and the films got 9%. Why didn't we talk about the films tonight, by the way? Because we just did a Voyage Home and First Contact episode, and that's what you need to know. So
And also, we'd need a 5-hour-long episode to discuss every single
everything, because
because
we're already running on 2 hours here almost. Let's get right into the mailbag. Who wants to read SMKs?
I'll do
Me.
that one.
All right, Hawk, hit it.
All right. SMK writes, past tense is my favorite time travel plot. During the watch along, it felt eerily prescient. In a way, it feels like we are only a few really bad years away from rounding up poor folks and putting them out of sight. It's especially eerie because at the time it aired, the episodes were contemporary with the mayoralty of Rudy Giuliani and NYC. At the time, there were a variety of policies and actions that were not just hostile to the unhoused, but also hostile to shelters in NYC. The apathy, the defeat, and the excuses made by the upper class in this story were already well entrenched in parts of society at the time the show aired. It's a well-used trope to use our aspirant future selves or society to examine current societal issues. TOS, let that be your last battlefield at all. But I felt past tense does this especially well. The only better examination of society in Star Trek, I think, comes from Far Beyond the Stars, which explicitly confronts race in a show with a black man as the star. One could argue Far Beyond the Stars isn't time travel, so I will leave that for another time. In terms of tropes, I would say past tense is one of only a handful of times when our heroes are trying to save the future that includes a look at the consequences of the changes in the timeline. I find this trope, as seen in the Back to the Future series, fun as it is effectively invokes the alternate timeline and alternate history storytelling motifs, but that can be hard to do as well.
I agree.
Agreed.
Very well
And when
said.
they don't do it right, it ends up being Endgame
Oof.
and not Voyager.
Damn, girl.
Mm.
Let
But
it
when
go.
they do it right,
Let
no,
it
I'm just kidding.
go.
No, I will let it go. Endgame is just Back to the Future.
Who wants to read Feffenog's
I can do it.
mailbag? All right, Eric, hit it.
Oh, so Feffenegg wrote, Past tense is one of my favorite time travel episodes, and for me, the best use of this trope. Being from South America, this homeless ghetto depicted in the episode and how the upper classes deal with them hits very close to home. Also, it is only a few years away now, and it pains me to realize society did not advance very much in this regard since the time this episode aired almost 30 years ago. This, in my opinion, is one of the best society commentary treks has ever made.
I
100%
agree.
agree.
1,000 billion
Yeah.
%.
It's an amazing episode.
Mhm.
Yep. Who wants Lexi's?
I already claimed Magmags. I could do both, though.
I'll read
do both.
Lexi's.
Okay.
Special shout out to Magic Makes the Sanest Man Go Mad. While it may not be the deepest time travel episode in Trek's history, nor even the most original take on the infinite time loop concept, it is a wonderful madcap adventure that allows for some nice character development and interactions, great humor, and surprisingly grim fate and spectacle. Getting to see Michael as a socially awkward person yearning for connection slowly come out of her shell, Stamets getting to take center stage in a crucial role, and Harry Mudd as a delightfully sinister villain, it all makes the episode a highlight of Discovery's first season. Absolutely.
Agree.
Truth.
Whoop. And Magmag wrote, TNG's Cause and Effect is one of the most daring and brilliant time loop stories. To see the Enterprise blow up in the cold open is amazing. And then to have the audience experience the loop with the crew is genius. Personally, I don't care for going to the past stories. Sorry, whale lovers. I prefer bootstrap and time puzzles. Of the episodes you guys watch along, Voyager's Relativity is the most interesting premise, the time jumping to hunt down the criminal and the loop payoff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very
Relatively is
enjoyable.
just
I'm gonna
fun.
watch that
Agree.
tonight.
Relativity.
All right, folks. We have definitely taken up enough of your time. So we are going to call it a night on this one. We want to thank everyone for joining us and sticking with it. This is, again, a Patron's Choice episode. We love the ideas that you've been giving us. We can't wait for the next Patron's Choice. We'll have that poll up about mid-month. As far as next week's episode, that one's still kind of up in the air. We haven't quite decided what we're going to do yet. We do have Star Trek Beyond later in the month and another Patron's Choice. Maybe we'll hit up Best of Species next week. We'll let you know on the Discord. But for now, I'm going to sign off. So for Ensign Brittany, for Lieutenant Hawk, for Rear Admiral Eric, for Ensign Aaron, I am Captain Julian. I say good night, Maj Ram.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.